Chapter 197. Dusk was dim, and the setting sun was like blood. A dark red sunset shone on the western mountains, while large patches of white clouds floated in the azure sky. Under the glow of the setting sun, they appeared as captivating as flames. The sound of rushing wind suddenly rang out in the blood-red sky. One could only see a five-colored streak of light streaking across the horizon, before shooting into the distance at an astonishing speed. He looked as if he was fleeing in panic from his pursuers, and he was pushing his speed to the limit. This full-speed journey lasted for nearly an hour, before it finally began to gradually slow down, as if it had run out of energy. The five-colored light finally landed on a mountaintop. Fang Qingshan stood still and surveyed his surroundings. He suddenly laughed and said, "Since you've come out. It must have been hard on all of you after following me for so long." Interesting. It seems that you've long known about it." As Fang Qingshan's laughter rang out, an indifferent voice resounded across the sky. The space not far from him slightly distorted as a figure appeared out of nowhere like a specter. It was the elder Go who had previously been by Prince Shua's side. Oh, defying the heavens and changing fate. Upon seeing this person, Fang Qingshan's pupils shrank slightly. He never imagined that the protector of Prince Shua would actually possess a cultivation that could defy the heavens and change fate. It seems that this person was very doted on by the great Xian Empire. "Since you know my cultivation, why aren't you surrendering?" The person who had arrived did not expect that Fang Qingshan would be able to see through his cultivation with a single glance. However, he did not think too much about it, and merely assumed that Fang Qingshan had cultivated some kind of technique. "Should I surrender just because your cultivation is higher than mine?" Fang Qingshan softly chuckled, before he teasingly said, "If that's the case, there's no need for us to fight in the future. We'll just release our auras and see who has a higher cultivation." What a sharp tongue. "I hope that your bones will be as hard as this when the time comes," Elder Go coldly said, a cold glint gradually gathering in his black pupils. "Won't you know whether my bones are hard or not after you try?" Fang Qingshan could not deny this. Courting death, Elder Go's eyelids drooped slightly. The smile at the corner of his mouth and his expressionless face gradually became somewhat sinister. When he finished speaking, a terrifying spiritual energy storm suddenly exploded from his body. The pitch-black spiritual energy swept across the heavens and earth, causing the temperature in this region to plummet in this instant. For a moment, the entire world seemed to have entered the Ice Age. A chill that could freeze the soul and seal the world instantly swept towards Fang Qingshan. Insignificant skill. Fang Qingshan had seen Hua Tiandu use the heavenly cold force, one of the 8 divine abilities of the emergent sect. Compared to Hua Tiandu, Elder Go was much weaker, be it in terms of the grade of his divine abilities, cultivation base, or experience. "If this is all you've got, you might have to stay here today." Fang Qingshan stood motionless on the spot. With a single thought, a burst of pure yang aura burst forth. It was as if a great sun had risen from the top of Fang Qingshan's head. In a split second, Elder Go's icebound world divine power melted away like white snow meeting the pure yang aura. Who are you?" Elder Go's eyes instantly turned grim when he saw this. He did not expect that his divine ability would be so easily broken by Fang Qingshan with just a wave of his hand. His heart could not help but skip a beat. "Who I am isn't important. What's important is that if you don't have any other means, this will be your burial ground," Fang Qingshan said indifferently. Arrogant. Although he felt that Fang Qingshan wasn't simple, Elder Go still didn't think that he could overturn the heavens. After all, he was an expert that defied the heavens and changed his fate. He was only one step away from becoming a longevity giant. "Since you're courting death, don't blame me." He took a step forward, and a vast amount of spiritual energy erupted. The space distorted and turned into a shadow that covered the sky above him. It looked like a raccoon with a white head and a pomegranate-like voice. It was the legendary Heavenly Hound. Heavenly Hound? When a shadow appeared, Fang Qingshan couldn't help but be shocked. However, after a closer look, he couldn't help but shake his head in pity. What a pity. It turned out that the reason why Elder Go could condense the Heavenly Hound Dharma was because he had a trace of the Heavenly Hound's bloodline in his body, which was accidentally activated. However, this trace of bloodline was too thin. In addition, the divine ability he cultivated was not only of a low level, but it also couldn't perfectly fuse with the Heavenly Hound. This was also the reason why he joined the Great Xian Empire and became the Path Protector of Prince. He wanted to obtain a divine ability that could perfectly fuse with the Heavenly Hound Dharma from the Great Xian Empire. Heavenly Hound devours the moon. On the other hand, Elder Go displayed his Dharma idol, his mouth wide open as he bit down on Fang Qingshan. In an instant, the sky turned dark and a huge, devouring force enveloped Fang Qingshan in an instant, wanting to swallow him into a black hole. If this was really the Heavenly Hound's natural divine ability, I might have to retreat. However, this is a pirated version. It's an insult to the Heavenly Hound devouring the moon. Although the devouring force was strong, Fang Qingshan was like a mountain, not moving at all. His body was covered with colorful clouds that illuminated the dark night. Great five elements, heavenly thunder, break. Fang Qingshan rubbed his hands together, and a five-colored thunder shot out. It expanded with the wind, and in an instant, it became as thick as a bucket. Crack! Accompanied by Elder Go's scream, the world changed back to its original state. Fang Qingshan was unharmed, but Elder Go's Dharma was charred black. As Fang Qingshan's understanding of the Tao of the five elements deepened, the power of Fang Qingshan's godly thunder of five elements became stronger. Last time, when he imparted it to Fang Qingshan, Fang Qingshan not only imparted the little destiny art to him, but also told him her understanding of the thunder art. With the two combined, the power of Fang Qingshan's great five elements heavenly thunder naturally multiplied. Even if it was not comparable to the great five elements annihilation needle, it was still superior to the great golden sword Qi. If he could obtain the great chaos thunder technique in the future, it might even be possible for it to become a supreme divine ability. Come here. Fang Qingshan stretched out his hand and grabbed at Elder Go's Dharma. In an instant, a five-colored giant palm appeared. The knuckles were distinct and the veins were clear, as if it was real. In an instant, it tore through the defense of Elder Go's Dharma and grabbed it in his hand. Great five elements chaotic whole capturing technique. Not good. Elder Go was shocked to see that his Dharma idol was actually in Fang Qingshan's grasp. He struggled with all his might, but unfortunately, he was firmly restrained by the brilliant five elements light. Die! After Fang Qingshan restrained Elder Go's Dharma, he flicked his finger and a sword Qi instantly pierced through Elder Go's forehead. Fang Qingshan waved his hand and took the Dharma and Elder Go's storage treasures, then turned and left. Chapter 198. Buzz. The whole world trembled. Then, a terrifying giant hand suddenly appeared from the direction of the Great Xian Empire, covering the sky and the sun, as if the whole world was in its palm, and space was frozen. Damn it, the Greater One sect. They actually sent such an expert to attack me. The cicada knows the future before the golden wind moves, secretly sending the impermanents to die without knowing. The reason why Fang Qingshan had hurriedly killed Taoist Go and turned to leave was because of the fluctuation of fate. He knew that a great calamity was coming, but he did not expect the enemy to be so powerful. If I want to leave, even celestial immortals can forget about capturing me. Fang Qingshan's face turned fierce, opened his mouth, and two pure yang flying swords flew out together. This was the first time he had used two high-grade Dao weapons at the same time. At the same time, he also injected the immortal Qi accumulated by the world tree into the pure yang flying swords. 50 great ways, 49 heavenly evolutions, escape into one kill. Fang Qingshan shouted, performed the void escape sword technique, and, at the same time, took out two Dao weapons. This time, Fang Qingshan did not use the pure yang sword technique, but used the void escape sword technique. The so-called void was space, and the escape was in front of space. This escape symbolized the escape of one, which was to find a flaw in the limit, to find a chance of survival. The two pure yang flying swords were like ancient divine dragons, flying in the sky, up and down, protected by auspicious clouds, their heads like scissors, and their tails like a pair of strands. They cut into the void from afar. Kacha! The space that had been sealed by the giant hand suddenly cracked, revealing a sliver of an opening. Go! The opportunity did not come again. Fang Qingshan seized the opportunity, and with a thought, he connected to the chessboard of all heavens. But there was a fluctuation in the space, and in an instant, Fang Qingshan disappeared without a trace. The giant hand fell, but caught nothing. Looking in the direction of the voice, he saw a Taoist sitting in the distant void, motionless like a mountain, solemn and dignified, his eyes like lightning, and with a slight breath, the wind and clouds changed, and with a slight movement of his eyes, there was thunder and lightning. The newcomer obviously didn't expect Fang Qingshan to escape, even after he personally made a move. He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. The great Xian Empire was within the sphere of influence of the Greater One sect. The taxes collected here every day were enough to support the cultivation of millions of disciples of the sect. Although Fang Qingshan had only exposed Shui Sangqiong in the Hongjun Tiandao Pavilion, and the Hongjun Tiandao Pavilion did not betray him, it was soon known by the people of the Greater One sect. This matter quickly spread to the upper echelons of the Greater One sect at the speed of light. At first, everyone's first feeling was anger. He had killed a Jindan successor disciple of the Greater One sect, and it had only been a short while, yet he dared to openly wander around in front of the Greater One sect. Did he really think that the Greater One sect did not dare to kill him? Then, everyone was delighted. To be honest, although the Greater One sect had been the #1 sect in the Xianhuang Great World for a long time, as the strength of the other major immortal sects increased, the Greater One sect also felt a wave of pressure, especially the emergent sect. First, Hua Tiandu had obtained the mantle of venerable immortal Panwu. Then Fang Qingxue had appeared and obtained the inheritance of the ancient Thunder Emperor. Later, even the Yellow Spring Grand Emperor's diagram of the underworld had fallen into the hands of the emergent sect. This had already made the Greater One sect very uncomfortable. Now, Fang Qingshan had appeared, and he was even better than Hua Tiandu and Fang Qingxue. He had the potential to become an immortal, and was able to force a tie with Hua Tiandu in the Jindan realm. Such a person, once he grew up, would be the mainstay of the emergent sect, but would be a great threat to the Greater One sect. They were worried about not being able to find an opportunity to obliterate the threat in the cradle, but they did not expect that Fang Qingshan would recklessly appear in the range of the Greater One sect strength. It was his destiny to have such a calamity, because they knew that although Fang Qingshan was only in the Jindan realm, even Hua Tiandu could not do anything to him. They knew very well that young elites like Fang Qingshan all had great luck. They were used to turning misfortunes into blessings and misfortune into fortune. If they missed their attack and allowed him to escape, it would instead be a form of training for him. Therefore, the Greater One sect did not send the true disciples or ordinary elders of the sect, but the head of the Greater One sect, a person from Hongjun Tiandao, to personally take action. The person from Hongjun Tiandao was an immortal giant, and not the kind of immortal first or second layer, but an expert who had comprehended time and space. They thought that with him taking action, they would definitely be able to capture Fang Qingshan, but they did not expect that Fang Qingshan would still escape. It's a pity. The person from Hongjun Tiandao sighed slightly. This time, they did not kill Fang Qingshan, but there would not be such a good opportunity next time. However, he was only a little regretful. Although Fang Qingshan was good, he was still a genius, but who was not a genius to be able to go far. When he really grew up, it was unknown how long it would take. Therefore, the person from Hongjun Tiandao did not care much. But the fact that Fang Qingshan had 2 high-grade killing Dao weapons in his hands made him slightly surprised. But the celestial chessboard did not attract his attention at all. The person from Hongjun Tiandao only thought that it was a life-saving talisman that the emergent sect had given to Fong Qingshan. The extreme west of the Tianluo continent was the most barren land in this continent. There were countless natural disasters, astral winds sweeping, strong enough to tear mountains, snow falling, and thousands of miles of frozen land. There were strange beasts roaming about. Their intelligence was not high, but each had their own spirituality and were extremely difficult to deal with because of the dangerous environment, except for a few organizations that specialized in hunting strange beasts and searching for various treasures. Few people came here. This situation had been going on for a long time, but it was broken not long ago. In the Tianluo continent, no matter if it was the major forces or rogue cultivators, sovereign realm, or three heavens realm, they were like locusts swarming towards this desolate land. In just half a year, this place had become the most flourishing place in the entire Tianluo continent. And all of this was because of the appearance of a ruin. The Ancient Haven Palace. The Ancient Haven Palace was one of the most powerful forces in ancient times, comparable to the current Endless Fire territory and West Heaven Palace. It was divided into the 5 halls and 9 mansions. Aside from the 3 heavenly sovereigns, the 5 hall lords were all perfected earth sovereigns. Amongst the 9 mansion lords, there were strong and weak, but all of them had stepped into the earth sovereign realm. Just thinking about the ruin left behind by such a group of powerhouses made one's heart surge. It was no wonder why the forces in the Tianluo continent, and even beyond the continent, would be rushing for it. Extreme West, West City, Tea House. A young man sat by the window. His brows were like mountains, and his eyes were like stars. Although there wasn't any spiritual energy surging around him, it was precisely this that made others feel fearful. After all, everyone that could come here was an expert, and no one would think that he was an ordinary person without any cultivation. I never expected that I would be in time for the opening of the Ancient Haven Palace. What luck! Fong Qingshan took a sip of tea as he thought. Chapter 199. That's right. The man before him was Fong Qingshan, who escaped from the hands of those from Hongjun Tiandao. After coming to the great ruler's world, Fong Qingshan found out that he was in the Great Law Continent. Initially, he was still considering what he should do when he heard the news of the opening of the Ancient Haven Palace. Without any hesitation, Fong Qingshan followed the crowd and came to the extreme west. Fong Qingshan wasn't unfamiliar with the Ancient Haven Palace. There were 2 treasures that he was determined to obtain. One of them was the Divine Ability Hall, which contained nearly all the divine abilities of the Ancient Haven Palace. Putting aside the rest, Fong Qingshan had been coveting the One Spirit Sanqing, which was one of the 36 peerless divine abilities. Although he did not know if the ancient heavenly emperor's one breath, turning 3 pure ones, had anything to do with the primordial world lord of Tao and virtue, or if it was his Tao technique, just the fact that it could create 2 clones with the same strength as the original was enough to make people salivate. The other place was the Heavenly Lake. The Heavenly Lake contained powerful divine energy that could stabilize one's spiritual foundation, allowing one's cultivation to reach perfection. This would increase one's chances of breaking through the shackles and passing the spiritual tribulation. This was what Fong Qingshan needed right now. His cultivation had already reached the Golden Core realm, and the next step would be the Wind and Fire tribulation. It was just that, with his accumulation, the might of the great tribulation of wind and fire would definitely be earth-shattering when he broke through. Putting aside the tribulation force, just the spiritual qi required for the breakthrough was enough to give Fong Qingshan a headache. After purchasing from the Hongjun Tiandao Pavilion, Fong Qingshan could be said to be uncorrupted. If he were to slowly accumulate elixirs, it would take an unknown amount of time. The appearance of the Heavenly Lake was like a pillow. As long as he made a breakthrough in it, not only could he consolidate his foundation, but he also wouldn't have to worry about the spiritual qi. There was still some time before the opening of the Ancient Haven Palace, so Fong Qingshan didn't delay and found a place to go into seclusion. He first took out the fragment of the world tree that he bought from Hongjun Tiandao Pavilion and threw it to the World Tree. The World Tree, who had been waiting impatiently for a long time, instantly stretched out its tentacle-like roots and pierced the huge fragment. Ka-cha-ka-cha! This huge fragment suddenly turned into a large amount of chaotic wood energy and was absorbed by the roots of the sapling. The two completely merged into one. It was different from devouring the 9-section staff last time. Although the 9-section scepter was not necessarily larger than the fragment, because it had already become a magical treasure, a Tao artifact, it had gained sentience. Naturally, it did not dare to be obliterated, so it would resist. Besides, although the 9-section staff was also transformed from a fragment of the World Tree, it was still of the same origin as the original sapling in Feng Qingshan's hands. However, this fragment of the World Tree was different. The two of them came from the same source and were originally one. Moreover, this fragment did not have any spirituality. Besides, compared to when it had swallowed the 9-section staff, the current World Tree was many times stronger. Therefore, the devouring was like a fish in water, and it couldn't be any smoother. As the fragment of the World Tree merged with Feng Qingshan, the World Tree between his eyebrows swelled violently. Apart from a time when it was watered with 9 solar holy water and devoured the 9-section staff, the World Tree usually did not change at all. At this moment, the World Tree was like rain after a long drought. It stretched its branches and leaves, changing with every breath it took. Although it did not grow from child to a child, one could see that the World Tree had taken a long step forward. Following that, Feng Qingshan felt all kinds of spiritual energy, including immortal energy, rush toward him like a tide. Compared to before, it was several times stronger. Not bad, not bad. Feng Qingshan's golden core was bathed in the immortal energy. It was as if he had soaked in a hot spring in the middle of winter. It was refreshing to the bone. Feng Qingshan calculated. At this speed, the spiritual energy in the celestial realm could be used to refine nearly 1 million nascent soul pills every day. Good. With this World Tree, it's like I have a cornucopia. In time, there's nothing I can't buy. Previously, Feng Qingshan was thinking about opening a market after buying so many things in Hongjun Tiandao Pavilion. But now, he couldn't help but laugh heartily. Striking while the iron was hot, Feng Qingshan once again poured the bottle of 9 solar holy water on the World Tree. But this time, the changes to the World Tree were not as big as before. If swallowing the fragment was like being injected with steroids, then swallowing the 9 solar holy water was like having a full meal. Although the World Tree did not continue to grow taller, after swallowing the 9 solar holy water, it grew more branches and leaves. The amount of spiritual energy it swallowed also increased slightly. Regarding this, Feng Qingshan was already very satisfied. Buzz! At that moment, the World Tree suddenly trembled. A massive amount of information poured into Feng Qingshan's golden core like a tidal wave. Fortunately, Feng Qingshan's golden core was unbelievably powerful. Not to mention, he also had the celestial chessboard to stabilize his sea of consciousness. Anyone else, even a longevity magnate, would not be able to catch their breath in a short period of time. Clang! As the information was digested by Feng Qingshan, he felt as if he had been given a head-on blow, enlightening him. Feng Qingshan seemed to have become the World Tree. From birth to maturity, bit by bit, he experienced wind, frost, snow, rain, lightning, and all sorts of tribulations, becoming stronger bit by bit. Because Feng Qingshan had already refined a World Tree into his second primordial spirit, as the World Tree grew, it would nurture Feng Qingshan. These were all the World Tree's legacies. Although the World Tree's growth was intermittent and different from ordinary living beings, especially humans, the great Daos all converged into one. However, all paths lead to the same destination. For Feng Qingshan, the fact that he could learn from the stones of other mountains was of great significance. As Feng Qingshan digested the World Tree's legacies, black whirlwinds and red flames began to emerge from his golden core. The wind, fire, tribulation. Yes, as he digested and understood, Fang Qingshan's realm was also rising rapidly. He had already reached the Golden Core realm, and now he instantly triggered the wind-fire tribulation. Buzz! At this moment, the celestial chessboard in his sea of consciousness, which had been motionless for 10,000 years, suddenly trembled and spat out a milky white light of fate into Fang Qingshan's golden core. Regardless of whether it was the black whirlwind or the fiery red flames, they were all scattered in an instant. That was close. Once the tribulation was over, Fang Qingshan naturally woke up. When he recalled what had happened earlier, he immediately broke out in a cold sweat. If the wind-fire tribulation had erupted at this time, even if he did not die, he would have suffered heavy losses. Fortunately, I have the celestial chessboard. Fang Qingshan could not help but let out a breath of turbid air. He could not continue cultivating, or he might trigger a tribulation at any time. Furthermore, the ancient Haven Palace was about to open, so it was time for him to go out and take a look. Thinking of this, Fang Qingshan waved his hand and kept the 5-cloud peach blossom miasma before walking out. Chapter 200. That's the young pavilion master of the Hidden Dragon Pavilion. It's said that Mu Shan is ranked in the 20s of the Great Law Continent's younger generation. There's also Jiang Ling of the Celestial Sword Sect. It's said that he went into seclusion in the Sword Tomb of the Celestial Sword Sect for 3 years and finally made his breakthrough into the 9th grade Sovereign Realm. TSK. Even Miss Chinya of the Horizon Pavilion is here. The Horizon Pavilion sells information, so they're the most well-informed. Looks like something big is going to happen in our western city, since she's personally here. Just as Fang Qingshan walked out of his seclusion, he felt a burst of spiritual energy in the air. From afar, he saw several figures flying through the air, accompanied by a powerful pressure. Then, he heard an uproar in the surroundings. Fang Qingshan raised his brows and listened carefully. He knew that someone had obtained a token from the ancient Haven Palace. In order to prevent the Sandpiper and Clam from fighting each other, they were holding an auction where the highest bidder would get the token. However, Fang Qingshan wasn't interested in the auction, since there were only 4 items in this auction. The divine ability was incomplete, and most importantly, it wasn't a peerless divine ability. He had the Serpent Slaughtering Sword and Pure Yang Sword, so he wasn't interested in that quasi-saint artifact. As for spiritual arrays, he wasn't proficient in them. He hadn't even seen the Pure Yang Taoist's alchemy manual, so he could only shelve it. As for the token, it was only a commander's seal. Although he could obtain an army, he wasn't a battle formation master, so there's no use for it. However, Fang Qingshan still went to watch the show and saw the main character of the Grand Ruler, Mu Chun, as well as the princess of the martial realm, Lin Jing. Although he was only a spectator, he was happy, and it wasn't a wasted trip. The next day, Fang Qingshan caught up to the battle between Xia Hong and Mu Chun. Although Mu Chin's cultivation was only at the quasi-9th grade Sovereign Realm, Fang Qingshan felt that Mu Chun wasn't any weaker than Hua Tiandu. The only difference would be the weapons in their hands. However, if they were to fight for real, it was still unknown who would emerge victorious in the end. Fang Qingshan compared his own strength and realized that he wasn't too far off from Mu Chun. Beneath the Earth Sovereign Realm, there wasn't anyone that could be his opponent. If it was a lesser or Middle Earth Sovereign, even if he couldn't defeat his opponent with the Pure Yang Flying Sword, it wouldn't be a problem for him to escape. If it was a Greater Earth Sovereign, then he could only use the Lesser Fate Art. As for the perfected Earth Sovereign Realm, Fang Qingshan shook his head and did not consider it. Still, it was not an issue for him to protect himself. As long as he could overcome the great tribulation of wind and fire and condense out his Dharma idol, he would have the guts to fight even an ordinary longevity giant or a lesser Earth Supreme. The only thing Fang Qingshan was thinking about right now was whether or not he should get his hands on 1 or 2 Sovereign Dharma idols. After all, he was also about to break through to the Heaven and Earth Dharma plane. Although there were some differences between the two, he could still learn from others. However, he wasn't interested in ordinary Sovereign Dharma bodies, not to mention that it wasn't easy for him to obtain a Sovereign Celestial body from the 99 rankings of Sovereign Celestial bodies. Looks like I can only rely on the Divine Ability Pavilion. Fang Qingshan inwardly pondered. As the strongest foundation of the ancient Haven Palace, the Divine Ability Pavilion must have many sovereign celestial body cultivation techniques on the 99 rankings of sovereign celestial bodies. If he could obtain them, it would be a great help for him to condense his Dharma idol. Time gradually passed, and the opening of the ancient Haven Palace was getting closer. There were more and more people coming to the western city, with battles occurring every day. Even Fang Qingshan was provoked a few times. He was alone and didn't seem to have a dense aura. Thus, he was naturally treated as a pushover. However, the outcome was clear. Not only did he not get to be a pushover, he even had to face an iron plate, especially when he encountered someone called Lu Shan. This person was ranked 19th on the expert ranking, a direct disciple of the Yu sect. He was in the initial phase of the 9th grade sovereign realm and cultivated the myriad mountain demon suppression body, which gave him the strength to uproot mountains. Although Fang Qingshan did not bring out the serpent executioner sword or the pure yang flying sword, he relied on a few great divine abilities to easily obtain victory, and his fame instantly rose. Ever since Fang Qingshan's reputation spread, there were no longer any ignorant people who came to find trouble with him. For a time, he was free. At a certain moment, Fang Qingshan's eyes widened. He stood up and looked into the distance, only to see that the space there was still in a berserk state. However, that berserk state was gradually calming down, and the rippling spatial cracks were showing signs of calming down. Looking from afar, it looked as if there was an invisible hand trying to restore the shattered space. It was incomparably mystical. Fang Qingshan knew that this was the self-restoration of the shattered space. Looks like we will soon be able to enter the ancient Haven Palace. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan's face lit up with joy. Thereafter, he sensed powerful spiritual energies in the surroundings that weren't on the same level as him, Mu Chun, and the rest. Evidently, they were the rulers of the various peak forces, Earth Sovereigns. Although Fang Qingshan wasn't afraid, there was no need for him to cause trouble. Thus, he briefly looked around before retracting his gaze and quietly waited for the final moment to arrive. The first obstacle to enter the ancient Haven Palace was to break through the violent space outside the palace. It wasn't a problem for Earth Sovereigns, but for 9th grade sovereigns without any special means, it was practically a death sentence. Thus, to ensure the safety of their subordinates, the various forces had joined together to open up a stable spatial passage. Fang Qingshan quietly watched them enter one by one. After all the people from the major powers had entered, Fang Qingshan calmly walked over and stepped into the violent space. Those who couldn't enter were stunned for a moment. Then, a look of pity appeared on their faces. Fang Qingshan naturally had no idea about this, and even if he knew, he wouldn't be bothered about it. Although the space here was violent, it wasn't dangerous for him. As long as he was careful, it wouldn't be a problem. Using the Void Evasion sword art to guide the way, he was enveloped in the Pentacloud Peach flower miasma, with the Pentacloud King Cauldron above his head as he walked in the shattered space. Black spatial cracks extended like huge dragons. The spatial ripples emitted from the cracks would cause one's scalp to turn numb. From time to time, there would even be spatial storm ripples spreading into the distance. Thanks to Fang Qingshan's Void Escape sword technique, he was able to find a safe path, and he also had 2 defensive treasures to protect him. Sometimes, when he couldn't avoid it, he would use the pure yang flying sword to open up a path and slash open a spatial crack. As such, he managed to arrive at the entrance of the ancient Haven Palace without any mishaps. Chapter 201. Desolate, dilapidated, and deathly silent. When he entered the ancient Haven Palace, he was greeted with a desolate aura. Looking at the surroundings, there were dilapidated walls everywhere. It wasn't any better than the spatial tunnel from before. Occasionally, there would be spatial cracks spreading out in the sky. Apart from this, Fang Qingshan also sensed waves of heart-palpitating power. This was the remnant aura of the world, left behind by the ancient experts who had fought here back then. Even though tens of thousands of years had passed, it was still difficult to dissipate, and it gave off an oppressive feeling, truly worthy of the ancient Haven Palace. Fang Qingshan sighed in his heart. Although it couldn't be compared to the Tai Yuan Immortal Palace that he had seen in the past, it was still a top-tiered place. So one could imagine how powerful the ancient Haven Palace was at its peak. Fang Qingshan knew that this was the outer region of the ancient Haven Palace, and if he wanted to enter the inner region, he would first have to find the Dragon Ascension Gate. The so-called Dragon Ascension Gate was a method used by the ancient Haven Palace to select disciples. It was similar to the spiritual root and aptitude test of other sections. The ancient Haven Palace was divided into 4 plaques and 3 colors. If your talent was outstanding, then you would be able to obtain the Dragon Plaque. If your talent was slightly inferior, then you would be able to obtain the WYRM Plaque. If your talent was slightly lower, then you would be able to obtain the Eagle Plaque, and the worst would be the Wolf Plaque. If you couldn't even obtain the Wolf Plaque, then sorry, but this isn't a place that you should come to. Furthermore, aside from the 4 plaques, there were also different colors. The lowest was white, followed by azure, and the best was gold. Fang Qingshan had a goal in his search. In addition to the fact that the Dragon Ascension Gate was the most conspicuous place in the outer region of the ancient Haven Palace, Fang Qingshan soon arrived. By the time Fang Qingshan arrived, there were already many geniuses with shocking strength present. After all, they had entered the violent space before him, and someone had opened up a stable spatial tunnel. Furthermore, the Dragon Ascension Gate wasn't a secret in the eyes of those powerful forces. There were a total of 3 Dragon Ascension Gates in the outer region of the ancient Haven Palace, and the one that Fang Qingshan came to was the one that Mu Chun and the rest were at. Fang Qingshan's arrival naturally attracted the attention of others. After all, he wasn't unknown anymore. Lu Shan, who was ranked 19th on the ranker ranking, was defeated by him, and he didn't seem to have to expend much effort to do so. After him, Ghost Hands Lu Gui and Wang Tongxian, who were ranked 17th and 16th, as well as Qin Jingzhe, who was ranked 5th, arrived. Buzz! At this moment, Fang Qingshan's expression changed slightly. He looked towards the source of the voice, only to see a tiny black tearing through the sky and rapidly approaching. Within a breath's time, it had arrived in front of him. It was a black flying insect about 10 feet in size. The insect had 4 wings, and its whole body was emitting a fierce aura, making it look especially ferocious. On top of it stood a beautiful woman dressed in a white robe. She held a jade flute in her hand. It was truly the beauty and the beast. It was the insect master ranked 2nd on the expert ranking, Su Qingyin. Su Qingyin was like the center of the world, attracting everyone's attention the moment she arrived. The reason why almost was because Fang Qingshan had only taken a glance at her at the beginning before he directed his gaze at the Dragon Ascension Gate. Su Qingyin's gaze swept past Lu Gui, Qin Jingzhe, and Mu Chun before falling onto Fang Qingshan. Su Qingyin was confident in her strength, force, and beauty. This was the first time that she had seen someone as unconventional as Fang Qingshan, so he had naturally attracted her attention. "You're the Fang Qingshan that easily defeated Lu Shan?" Su Qingyin curiously asked. In an instant, countless gazes had gathered onto Fang Qingshan. Fang Qingshan's brows twitched. He clearly did not expect Su Qingyin to speak to him first. Shouldn't she be looking for Qin Jingzhe before testing Mu Chun? Why did she look for him? This was the butterfly effect. If it wasn't for Fang Qingshan, Mu Chun would naturally be the most outstanding. Although he had won against Xiao Hong, he had to spend a great deal of effort. Furthermore, Xiao Hong was still a rank lower than Lu Shan. Most importantly, everyone was looking at him out of fear, admiration, and infatuation. Only Fang Qingshan did not look at Su Qingyin, since who else would she look for if not him? I was just lucky. Although Fang Qingshan didn't know so much, he still replied indifferently. He was currently focused on the ancient Haven Palace, planning to obtain the Golden Dragon Plaque and enter the Heavenly Lake and Hidden Scripture Pavilion, so he did not want to cause any trouble. Although he did not want to cause trouble, he wanted to see if trouble would let him go. Lucky? Let me give it a try, and I'll know if I'm lucky or not. Su Qingyin smiled as she waved her sleeve. A black light burst out from her sleeve and expanded, instantly turning into a spiritual insect that was 10-odd feet in size. The spiritual insect had 4 limbs that were grayish-white in color, looking like a rock. On the surface of its body, there were countless spiritual energy runes that vaguely emanated a powerful energy. Sizzle. When the spiritual insect appeared, it charged towards Fong Qingshan like a bolt of lightning. It was a swift movement that had exceeded everyone's expectations. When everyone recovered, they saw that the spiritual insect had already arrived above Fong Qingshan's head and slashed its claw down. Space slightly trembled with visible ripples. Aside from Qin Jingzhe, only Fong Qingshan wasn't surprised by this. Qin Jingzhe had suffered a sneak attack from Su Qingyi in the past, so he knew that she was temperamental. Aside from having memories of the past, Fong Qingshan had also maintained his vigilance. When Fong Qingshan saw that Su Qingyi had actually made a move against him, his face instantly turned cold with a cold light flashing in his eyes. He pulled his hands back, and a black zigzag ripple suddenly appeared and slashed towards the spiritual insect. Su Qingyi's face instantly changed. She wanted to recall the spiritual insect, but it was already too late. Boom! With a huge commotion, the spiritual insect was instantly crushed into meat paste. Great slicer art. The space in the ancient Haven Palace wasn't stable to begin with, and since Fong Qingshan had executed the great slicer art, it was naturally effective. Su Qingyi clearly hadn't expected Fong Qingshan's counterattack to be so sharp and directly annihilate her spirit insects. She'd never suffered such a huge loss in her life, so her pretty face immediately turned icy cold. She didn't say a word and waved her sleeve again. In the blink of an eye, a terrifying, ominous aura soared into the sky. Then, a blood-red spiritual insect darted out. It was like a centipede with 1,000 legs as it crawled in the sky. As it breathed, boundless spiritual energy swept out, forming into a storm. Chapter 202. Blood Centipede. Seeing this thing, someone immediately cried out in surprise. One must know that even a pinnacle 9th grade sovereign would have a headache dealing with this creature. Evidently, Su Qingyi was enraged that Fong Qingshan had destroyed her spiritual insect. In a split second, the situation was truly filled with twists and turns that dazzled everyone's eyes. First, Su Qingyi made a move against Fong Qingshan. Then Fong Qingshan killed her spiritual insect, which caused Su Qingyi to release a ferocious creature like the blood centipede. You're courting death. Indeed, a kind person would be bullied, and a kind horse would be ridden. He did not cause any trouble, but trouble came to him. A trace of killing intent flickered in Fong Qingshan's eyes. He had destroyed Su Qingyi's spiritual insect to intimidate the tiger, but he never expected that the tiger would become even more ferocious. If a tiger doesn't show its might, you'll think that I'm a sick cat. The blood-red centipede pierced through the void and headed straight for Fong Qingshan. It was as fast as a ghost. Descent. Fong Qingshan raised his hand, and a 5-colored thunderbolt, as thick as a bucket, struck the blood centipede. Up in the sky, Su Qingyi's face finally had a slight change. Although the blood centipede was powerful, it wasn't that it couldn't be restrained. It was most afraid of pure yang divine abilities like thunderbolts. As the thunderbolt rumbled, the blood centipede let out a mournful shriek, and the boundless spiritual energy in its body swiftly withered. The blood aura around it had dissipated by more than half, and it was char-black. Come back. Su Qingyi felt her heart ache at the sight of this. She waved her sleeve and wanted to recall the blood centipede. Although she was an insect master, it wasn't easy for her to nurture such a powerful spiritual insect. It required a massive amount of time, energy, and resources. It could be said that every spiritual insect was the product of her blood, sweat, and tears. Hence, when Fong Qingshan killed her spiritual insect, Su Qingyi did not hesitate to teach Fong Qingshan a lesson. But she never expected that she would provoke an iron plate this time. You come and go as you please. Do you think I don't exist? Upon seeing this, Fang Qingshan let out a hollow laugh. With a thought, another five-colored lightning bolt struck down. Lightning strikes with a single thought. Crack! In the sky, the blood centipede that Su Qingyin had yet to recall turned into ashes. Ever since Fang Qingxue had exchanged the lightning arts, Fang Qingshan's five elements thunder had undergone an earth-shattering change. Especially after he continued to refine the essence of the five elements. Its power had increased day by day. Even a pinnacle ninth-grade sovereign would have a headache dealing with the blood centipede. But Fang Qingshan's strength wasn't something an ordinary pinnacle ninth-grade sovereign could compare to, especially since the lightning art could restrain insects. You're courting death. She had already recalled her spiritual insects, but Fang Qingshan still continued to kill them. Su Qingyin was immediately angered to the point of forgetting that she was the one who provoked Fang Qingshan. But she didn't care about that. She only knew that her spiritual insect was killed by Fang Qingshan, and she wanted revenge. She took out a blood-red flag and waved it at Fang Qingshan. Long, pitch-black worms flew out from the banner. They were soft and looked as if they did not have any power. However, Qin Jingzhi's expression changed abruptly, and he exclaimed, "Spirit-absorbing worms." Although the name spirit-absorbing insect was ordinary, its power shouldn't be underestimated. Qin Jingzhi had suffered from it before. Although this thing looked soft and powerless, its defensive power was astonishing. Ordinary attacks that landed on its body seemed to be unable to exert any force. More importantly, these spirit-absorbing insects had the ability to ignore restrictions and gang qi. Ordinary defense treasures and gang qi were nothing to them, and there was more than one of them. Hundreds and thousands of spirit-absorbing insects flew out from Su Qingyin's flag and swept toward Fang Qingshan. You're courting death. Fang Qingshan didn't care at first, but the five-elemental divine lightning didn't have a good effect on the spirit-absorbing insects, and the five-cloud peach flower miasma on his body couldn't defend against the spirit-absorbing insects. The spirit-absorbing insects stuck to Fang Qingshan's body and kept wriggling, desperately absorbing his spirit-absorbing insects. Their bodies were also growing rapidly, expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the contrary, the spirit qi in Fang Qingshan's body gushed out like a flood. This was because Fang Qingshan's spirit qi was unbelievably dense, and he had the Tree of Worlds' constant replenishment. Otherwise, someone else would be sucked dry in a breath. Since you want to fight, I'll fight with you to the end. Fang Qingshan was completely enraged by Su Qingyin, the crazy woman. Five elements of heaven and earth kill everything. Great five elements destruction needle. As Fang Qingshan chanted, a five-colored radiance shot out from his body. Then crystal-clear glass needles that emitted five-colored light flew out. They were as thin as cow hair and as numerous as cow hair. In an instant, each of the spirit-absorbing bugs was pierced by a divine needle. Crack! Seeing that the spirit-absorbing insects were all over Fang Qingshan's body, Su Qingyin, who thought that victory was in her grasp, suddenly had a drastic change in her expression. The flag in her hand let out a crisp sound and split into two, losing its spirit qi. The spirit-absorbing insects that flew out let out cries of fear before the great five elements destruction needle even pierced into their bodies. They twisted their bodies frantically, trying to escape. However, at this moment, if they could still escape, Fang Qingshan wouldn't value the great five elements destruction needle so much. Accompanied by the spirit-absorbing insects' miserable cries, their bodies were pierced and turned into a pool of thick water. Not even their bones were left. Like snow in summer, they melted so easily. Su Qingyin and Qin Jingzhi were horrified by this scene, and they were extremely terrified in their hearts. They knew the power of the spirit-absorbing insects, but they couldn't even fight back against Fang Qingshan's divine ability. How could they not be shocked? At this moment, Su Qingyin finally began to regret. Not only did she lose the blood centipede, but she also destroyed the spirit-absorbing insects. Most importantly, she provoked a powerful enemy like Fang Qingshan. It's impolite not to reciprocate. After sweeping away the spirit-absorbing insects, Fang Qingshan finally had his hands free and said coldly to Su Qingyin, "Wait." Hearing Fang Qingshan's voice and seeing the great five elements destruction needle gathering beside him, Su Qingyin couldn't help but feel a chill. Although she still had a trump card, she definitely didn't want to expose it at this moment. She quickly interrupted Fang Qingshan's words and looked at Fang Qingshan apologetically. Qingyin was rash earlier. I hope that brother Fang won't blame me. A great person shouldn't hold grudges against a lowly person. Chapter 203. What sort of figure was Su Qingyin? She was ranked second in the Great Law Continent and had a powerful master, the myriad insect ancestor. If it was someone else, their heart would probably soften upon seeing the pitiful Su Qingyin. But it was a pity that she had encountered Fang Qingshan. If forgiveness is useful, then why do you have to fight to the death? Fang Qingshan's face did not change as he faintly said. However, the killing intent in his tone made everyone feel a chill down their spines. Damn it, where did such a cold-hearted fellow come from? Su Qingyin couldn't help clenching her teeth when she heard Fang Qingshan's words. She had already admitted defeat, but Fang Qingshan still wouldn't let her off. If it was another situation and someone else, Su Qingyin wouldn't be bothered to speak and would have started the battle. She, Su Qingyin, wasn't someone that would be easily frightened. But this was the ancient Haven Palace, and the reason why everyone came here was to search for opportunities, not to fight to the death. If they couldn't even enter the inner region of the ancient Haven Palace and fought with Fang Qingshan here, then it wouldn't be worth it. Naturally, the most important factor was that when Fang Qingshan revealed his killing intent, Su Qingyin felt her heart palpitating. One must know that she had a spiritual insect that was comparable to an Earth Sovereign, but even so, she still felt the threat of death. In addition to the three divine abilities that Fang Qingshan had executed, one could imagine how dangerous Fang Qingshan was, which made Su Qingyin have no choice but to lower her head. Right now, she was considering how to let Fang Qingshan take over this matter. Everyone felt weird when they heard that Su Qingyin had admitted defeat, but Fang Qingshan had actually rejected it, which made everyone feel disbelief. But when they saw Su Qingyin's reaction, they couldn't help inwardly smacking their lips. Looking at Fang Qingshan, there were traces of fear and worship in their eyes. After all, it was probably the first time that Su Qingyin had admitted defeat and refused to accept it without enraging her. I wonder how Brother Fang can forgive Qingyin. Su Qingyin asked Fang Qingshan with resentment. Naturally, you have to show your sincerity. Fang Qingshan said lightly. Since that's the case, I wonder if these sovereign spiritual liquids can be used as compensation. Su Qingyin waved her hand and a jade bottle flew out. The mouth of the bottle was tilted and rumbling noises resounded. Rivers started to flow out with boundless spiritual energy filling the sky above the Dragon Ascension Gate. Everyone was dumbfounded as they looked at the river in the sky. With their eyesight, they could naturally tell that there was a total of 5 million drops of sovereign spiritual liquid. Forget it. Since it's like this, let's write off what happened today. Seeing the sovereign spiritual liquids, Fang Qingshan's face finally calmed down as he stored all the sovereign spiritual liquids with a wave of his hand. In the future, if Miss Su wants to take revenge, I will accompany you. But at that time, it won't be as simple as today. Everyone was shocked that a mere apology would cost 5 million drops of sovereign spiritual liquid. But when they heard Fang Qingshan's words, their faces twitched. That fellow was still trying to act innocent after getting a bargain. Su Qingyin gnashed her teeth and inwardly cursed in her heart. Don't fall into my hands. Otherwise, I'll let you know why flowers are red. Naturally, Su Qingyin still had a pitiful expression on her face as she said in a gentle voice, I will listen to Brother Fang's teachings. Fang Qingshan didn't care if there was any hidden meaning in her words. He nodded and didn't say anything else. How interesting, Mu Chun. That fellow seems to be more formidable than you. Lin Jing looked at Fang Qingshan with a weird expression as she said to Mu Chun, Yeah, I can feel a dense threat coming from him. I believe Su Qingyin also feels the same, which is why she's willing to lose her face and apologize. Nine Nether said with a grave expression. Let's hope that he's not our enemy. Mu Chan said with a solemn expression as a weird thought rose in his heart. It seems that he and Fang Qingshan might have a conflict in the ancient Haven Palace. But he was also a person that would grow stronger when facing the strong. Although Fang Qingshan had forced Su Qingyin to admit defeat, Mu Chun wasn't afraid. On the contrary, it had ignited his fighting spirit. He seemed to be interested in having a conflict with Fang Qingshan. Looking at everyone's astonished gazes, Fang Qingshan suddenly felt a surge of fighting spirit. When he raised his head, he saw Mu Chun looking at him with fighting spirit in his eyes. Fang Qingshan's brows twitched before he nodded his head. After a brief pondering, he turned into a streak of light and flew towards the Dragon Ascension Gate. His confrontation with Su Qingyin had determined that Fang Qingshan couldn't keep a low profile anymore. Since that's the case, he wasn't willing to wait any longer. Thus, he had to obtain his disciple token first. In the vast heavens and earth, a massive ancient gate quietly stood, as if it had existed since ancient times. Fang Qingshan's leap was akin to a carp leaping through the dragon's gate, which instantly attracted everyone's attention. Rustle. Under everyone's gazes, the moment Fang Qingshan ascended the Dragon Ascension Gate, a luster suddenly swept out. As the luster flashed, Fang Qingshan's silhouette disappeared from the Dragon Ascension Gate. Fang Qingshan could be said to be the strongest person on the Dragon Ascension Gate, so his probing had attracted everyone's attention. Regardless of what others were thinking, Fang Qingshan was swept by the luster of the Dragon Ascension Gate. He could sense the space around him fluctuating, but he did not resist. A brief moment later, he felt his body lightening up and his eyes lit up. He had appeared on a massive plaza. The plaza was so massive that he couldn't see the end of it. The surroundings were filled with a tragic aura. The ground was covered in sinister dents, as if it was a testament to the countless battles that had occurred here. Fang Qingshan knew that this was the Dragon Ascension Gate's test. Casting his gaze over, he saw 10-odd stone pillars with statues carved on them. Those statues were vivid and lifelike, as if they were alive. Vaguely, there was a shocking spiritual energy fluctuation emanating from them. He knew that these were the people who would take the test for different disciples. After sizing him up for a while, Fang Qingshan retracted his gaze. At that moment, there was a strange ripple in the space around him, and the entire square seemed to tremble slightly. Challenger, 6th grade sovereign, challenge authorization, White Wolf disciple. As the plaza trembled, an ancient voice resounded. There wasn't any intellect in that voice. It was extremely hollow. Fang Qingshan knew that the Dragon Ascension Gate was a saint artifact, equivalent to a Tao artifact. It had its own intellect, and it could judge the challenger's strength and give them the most suitable match. But with the destruction of the ancient Haven Palace, it was heavily injured, so it was only left with instinct. Shortly after, Fang Qingshan bitterly smiled. He, Fang Qingshan, was a top-tier disciple in the Ascension Gate, but he was actually judged as the lowest White Wolf disciple here. Although the Dragon Ascension Gate no longer had any intellect, Fang Qingshan still felt unhappy in his heart. Chapter 204. But fortunately, the judgment wasn't final, and he could still challenge it. Otherwise, if Fang Qingshan was determined to be a White Wolf disciple, wouldn't he become a laughingstock? Just as Fang Qingshan was muttering to himself, the stone shadow on the rightmost stone pillar seemed to have been activated. It trembled slightly, opened its eyes, stood up, and suddenly shot out, landing heavily on the ground in front of Fang Qingshan. That stone silhouette was donned in heavy armor, looking like an iron pagoda with a terrifying power emanating from it that even caused the ground to tremble. 5-ding mountain splitter. Boom! The White Wolf disciple roared as he retrieved the axe from his back and swung it down. Crackle! 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 It was as if space couldn't bear it anymore. The axe that contained a terrifying force swiftly expanded in Fang Qingshan's eyes. However, there wasn't any change in his expression. He was someone that could even suppress Su Qingyin, so a mere white wolf disciple was nothing to him. However, Fang Qingshan flicked his finger, and a white sword light shot out. The cold light cut through the space and collided head-on with the axe. This was one of the 8 divine abilities of the Ascension sect, the Great Metal Sword Aura. Clang! A metallic clang resounded. Before the axe could even land, it was struck by the great boundless metal sword Aura, causing a crack to appear on the edge of the axe. The massive force that came with the axe threw the axe high up into the sky, and the stone silhouette that was holding onto the axe was blown away by the terrifying force before it exploded into sparkles of light in the sky. With a flick of his finger, the stone silhouette was instantly killed. There wasn't any change in Fang Qingshan's expression. If he couldn't even deal with the White Wolf disciple, then there's no need for him to go to the ancient Haven Palace. He might as well find a place to wash up and sleep. After the White Wolf disciple was killed, the plaza remained silent for a brief moment, as if the Dragon Ascension Gate still hadn't reacted. However, a moment later, another rumbling sound rang out. Fang Qingshan grew curious. He wondered what level of opponent he would be facing this time. From the right to the left, the stone shadow on the 7th stone pillar woke up. It was a man in a gray robe. A white dragon was embroidered on his robe. The dragon bared its fangs and brandished its claws, emitting a ferocious aura. White Dragon Disciple. Seeing this figure, Fang Qingshan could not help but secretly nod. That was more like it. Although he still hadn't reached his limit and fully displayed his potential, at least he was an existence that made people angry just by looking at the White Wolf disciples. Just like the White Wolf disciple from before, the White Flood Dragon disciple flew down from the stone pillar and appeared in front of Fang Qingshan. Without saying a word, he immediately started fighting. Her expression was indifferent as she stared at Fang Qingshan like the Grim Reaper. She stretched out her hand and spread open her fingers. Rays of light gathered in from afar. It looked like a white jade hand. Beneath the beauty, there was a sense of danger that caused one's heart to palpitate. The white jade hands suddenly formed a seal and light bloomed. Faintly, it looked like a white jade lion. Jade lion spirit seal. Roar. As the voice of the White Flood Dragon disciple fell, he lightly tossed the spirit seal into the air, transforming it into a mighty lion. The lion roared towards the sky, causing the space to tremble. Its claws were like the claws of a cloud dragon. Great cutting technique. Seeing the White Flood Dragon disciple's killing technique, Fang Qingshan's expression was still calm. With a pull of his hands, a black zigzag-shaped ripple swept out. The crack in space extended like a dragon. Chi! When the lion came into contact with those ripples, it was like a soldering iron entering cold water, emitting a sizzling sound. A moment later, the lion trembled and stopped in midair. Upon closer inspection, there was a crack between its eyebrows. Pung! The lion was split into two, turning into specks of light and disappearing into thin air. The crack in space formed by the great cutting technique didn't lose any momentum and slammed into the White Flood Dragon disciple. With a cracking sound, the White Flood Dragon disciple's body immediately collapsed, turning into specks of light and dissipating. Instant kill. Another instant kill. The Dragon Ascension Gate didn't expect that it would still be insta-killed even after being promoted from a White Wolf disciple to a White Flood Dragon disciple. It took a long time for it to react. An even more intense tremor rang out, and a figure on the 2nd stone pillar on the left slowly awakened. Accompanying his recovery was a mountainous and ocean-like pressure. Golden Dragon disciple. Fang Qingshan's face turned solemn. He never expected that not only would the Dragon Ascension Gate awaken a Dragon Plaque disciple, but it would also be a Golden Dragon disciple. All right, I'll have to face it in the end anyway. Fang Qingshan's target had always been a Golden Dragon disciple. Now that he encountered one in advance, it could be considered a quick battle. On the 1st stone pillar on the left, a figure slowly stood up and moved his limbs. He seemed to have just woken up and was in a deep sleep for a long time. Although he wasn't used to it, it only lasted for a moment. He wore a black robe with a golden dragon on his body. He held a black spear in his hand and pointed it forward. There seemed to be ancient runes on the tip of the spear, causing space to tremble. Perfected grade 9, Fang Qingshan sensed it. Although it couldn't be compared to Hua Tiandu, it wasn't much weaker than Elder Go. Kill. This time, Fang Qingshan took out the pure yang flying sword. Chirp. A light chirp sounded like the awakening of a real golden crow. A pair of sword wings flapped and set off continuous ripples in the void. Behind Fang Qingshan, a huge sun rose into the sky. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Following that, there were 9 more chirps and 9 suns rose into the sky. At first, it was like a young phoenix crying for the first time, and in the end, it was like a phoenix crying in the 9 heavens like the sun in the middle of the sky. 10 suns intertwined in the sky, causing the void to distort and create continuous waves. Buzz. A moment later, there was a sonorous sword chime, and the 10 suns merged into one. A dazzling sword light bloomed. It was a golden sun, and the sword Dao intertwined with each other like a sword sun. A terrifying, majestic aura descended and gathered at the tip of the sword, pointing at the golden dragon disciple. If the enemy doesn't move, I won't move. If the enemy moves, I'll move first. When Fang Qingshan moved, the golden dragon disciple moved as well. It slowly lifted the black spear in its hand and pointed it at the pure yang sun at the tip of Fang Qingshan's sword. The next moment, it turned into a beam of black light and became one with the spear. Boom! The sword light collided with the tip of the spear. It was like Mars colliding with Earth. The loudest sound was silent, and the largest elephant was silent. At this moment, there was no sound. The space in front of them was constantly twisting. A black hole spread out from the center, and a surging, devouring power swept in all directions. Go! Seeing this, Fang Qingshan's expression changed slightly. He became one with the sword and used the sword art of void escape. Then, he turned into a beam of light and escaped far away. Chapter 205. Congratulations on becoming a golden dragon disciple of my ancient haven palace. When the dust settled, the golden dragon disciple cupped his hands towards Fang Qingshan with a smile on his face. Fang Qingshan could rely on the void evasion sword art to avoid harm, along with the 5 cloud peach flower miasma and 5 hell king cauldron, which allowed him to escape from the spatial storm. However, the golden dragon disciple wasn't that lucky. He took Fang Qingshan's pure yang sword art head-on and was swept away by the spatial storm. Despite his cultivation being in the perfected 9th grade sovereign, he still couldn't escape the fate of being instantly killed. When he finished his words, just like the white wolf and white Jiao dragon disciples, light blossomed from his body. Like a mirror that had exploded, it turned into a fluorescent light that filled the sky and dissipated. The only difference was that after the white wolf and white WIRM disciples failed, the Heavenly Ascension Gate activated their higher-ranked disciples. On the other hand, after the Golden Dragon disciple failed, he turned into an ancient token and landed in Fang Qingshan's hand. On the token, there was a massive golden dragon that emanated a powerful pressure. This was the symbol of a top-tier disciple of the ancient Haven Palace, the Golden Dragon token. With this token, Fang Qingshan could obtain the highest authority in the ancient Haven Palace. When Fang Qingshan obtained the Golden Dragon token, he naturally passed the test. The Dragon Ascension Gate trembled, and a radiance enveloped him before a repulsive force sent him out through a spatial crack. Not much time had passed since Fang Qingshan entered the Dragon Ascension Gate. After all, he had achieved 3 consecutive kills, and all of them were instant kills. As such, when Fang Qingshan appeared, he gave everyone a fright. Their hearts were filled with bewilderment, wondering what had happened for him to come out so quickly. Just when everyone wanted to ask what happened, they weren't familiar with Fang Qingshan, not to mention that Su Qingyin nearly fought with Fang Qingshan. Thus, they couldn't help hesitating as they looked at each other, but no one stepped forward. Buzz. Right at this moment, there was a new situation in the Dragon Ascension Gate. The Dragon Ascension Gate shone brightly, like a treasure was born. Tens of thousands of rays of light shone, causing everyone to close their eyes subconsciously. When it opened, the brilliance converged and turned into a human figure. Who else could it be but Feng Qingshan? Of course, that wasn't important. What was important was that when Feng Qingshan appeared in the sky above the Dragon Ascension Gate, a draconic roar resounded and a massive golden pillar soared into the sky from Feng Qingshan. At this point, no one knew that Feng Qingshan had passed the test and obtained the best disciple token to become a golden dragon disciple. Did something happen to the Dragon Ascension Gate? At the same time, a question popped up in everyone's mind. Everyone had witnessed how powerful Feng Qingshan was, but the ancient Haven Palace was a top-tiered force in the Great Thousand World. For Feng Qingshan to pass through the Dragon Ascension Gate so easily, everyone felt that it wasn't real. They subconsciously thought that the Dragon Ascension Gate was damaged in the ancient war, allowing Feng Qingshan to easily obtain the Golden Dragon Disciple's identity. Since Feng Qingshan could obtain the Golden Dragon token without any effort, didn't that mean that they could as well? Thinking about it, everyone's heart blazed with passion. Even if they couldn't compare to Feng Qingshan and couldn't obtain the Golden Dragon token, obtaining the Azure Dragon or White Dragon token was still good. Thinking about it, no one was willing to delay any longer. All of them charged into the Dragon Ascension Gate as if they were rushing to reincarnate. Although their thoughts were naive, reality had given them a huge slap in the face. They went in quickly and came out even faster. In less than a dozen breaths, they were spat out miserably. The majority of the tokens that they obtained were Azure Wolf tokens, and only a few of them were Golden Wolf tokens. The heated atmosphere from Feng Qingshan's easy passage was instantly silenced, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured on them. Huh! Feng Qingshan gently smiled. The Dragon Ascension Gate was damaged, but the artifact's spirit had been erased, leaving only its instincts. Thus, it wasn't as agile as before. However, the inspection method wasn't any weaker. Shaking his head, Feng Qingshan activated the Golden Dragon token. Instantly, a golden luster blossomed from the Golden Dragon token and enveloped him before he turned into a golden beam and flew out. The countless rays of spiritual energy that were akin to a huge array dissipated upon coming into contact with the golden light, allowing Feng Qingshan's figure to pass through the array before disappearing from sight. Although entering first didn't mean that he would be able to obtain more treasures, it meant that he would be able to obtain more possibilities. Furthermore, waiting here was just a waste of time, and he would be treated as a monkey. Thus, Feng Qingshan had swiftly left under countless sighing gazes and disappeared. Along with Feng Qingshan's departure, Lu Gui, Wang Tongxian, Qin Jingzhe, and even Su Qingyin and Mu Qin's party couldn't hold back any longer and flew toward the Dragon Ascension Gate. Naturally, Feng Qingshan had no idea about this. At this moment, he had already arrived at the inner section of the ancient Haven Palace under the lead of the Golden Dragon token. Standing in the sky, he raised his head and looked over. What he saw was an ancient, desolate, and tragic aura that was even more desolate and tragic than the outer region. He saw that the vast sky was divided into two. The top was the islands scattered like stars in the sky, while the bottom was the mountain peaks, row upon row. There were jade steps, golden doors and emerald buildings, carved clouds and moon, and jasper railings. There were waterfalls that looked like dragons descending from the mountains with rumbling noises that resounded between the heavens and earth. But it was a pity that this place had already fallen, and he could only vaguely witness the prosperity of the past. Although this place made people sigh with emotion, it was already yesterday's yellow flower. Things remained the same, but people had changed. Moreover, the emergent sect was not inferior to this place. Therefore, Feng Qingshan only sighed a little and calmed his mind. He didn't come to the ancient Haven Palace to sightsee, but to search for treasures. For Feng Qingshan, an ordinary collection wasn't something that he would place in his eyes. Thus, those that entered were like red-eyed bandits that wished to flip this place upside down. They were like locusts that wanted to dig 3 feet into the ground. Fang Qingshan stood on the spot and pondered. This was the first level of the inner section of the ancient Haven Palace. According to the structure of the ancient Haven Palace, this should be the location of the 9 mansions. Behind the 9 mansions was one of Fang Qingshan's main targets, the Heavenly Lake. Although the 9 mansions were pretty good, with every single one of them being an Earth Sovereign, they weren't placed in Fang Qingshan's eyes. Thus, he did not look for them, but flew towards the Heavenly Lake. Naturally, if he bumped into them along the way, he wouldn't refuse. His silhouette moved and turned into a streak of light, flying through the mountains and islands towards the intersection. Chapter 206. Fang Qingshan did not stop at any of the islands or mountains along the way. Firstly, although the islands and mountains were ruined, the restrictive formations were still there. He wasn't proficient in formations, so he could only break them with force. More importantly, he didn't really like the things inside. It was a strenuous and unrewarding task, so he naturally wouldn't do it. Naturally, it was also because he did not have a map of the ancient Haven Palace like Muchan, so he had no idea where the 9 mansions were. Thus, it wasn't in his character to search for them one by one. Thus, Fang Qingshan did not spend any effort on it. He only stopped when he saw many people gathered on an island. There were people here, which meant that there were treasures here, and many people meant that the treasures here weren't simple. Just as he had expected, the moment Fang Qingshan stepped onto the island, Fang Qingshan knew where he was. The Dragon Mansion's island. The Dragon Mansion was also one of the 9 mansions. It was said that the strength of the mansion lord could be ranked amongst the top, even amongst the 9 mansions. Thus, Fang Qingshan naturally wouldn't want to miss out on the treasures left behind by such an expert. Far away, Fang Qingshan could see the crowd on the Dragon Mansion. Furthermore, the number of people was constantly increasing. Occasionally, there would be silhouettes flying over. Evidently, they had received some information and swiftly made their way over. Although there were many people, there weren't many that dared to barge in. That's because the Dragon Mansion's island was covered in a faint mist. The mist wasn't dense, but it still made others feel fearful. Dragon breath poison. A poison refined with dragon breath. One must know that the Dragon Clan was an extremely powerful clan in the world, and the dragon breath was one of their strongest means. So one could imagine how powerful a poison refined with dragon breath would be. Even a lesser Earth Sovereign would be in a terrible state if they breathed in too much of it. Even those beneath the Earth Sovereign realm would die if they were careless. Thus, although there were many people here, no one dared to take a step forward. But when Fang Qingshan saw this scene, he rejoiced instead of being startled. Although the dragon breath was powerful, it wasn't something that Fang Qingshan placed in his eyes. Furthermore, the Pinnet Cloud Peach Flower Miasma in his hand could absorb all sorts of miasma and poisons to evolve. Arsenic to another, honey to me. In the eyes of outsiders, the dragon breath poison was something that should be avoided at all costs. But to Fang Qingshan, it was an excellent treasure. Fang Qingshan threw out the 5-cloud peach blossom miasma with a flick of his hand. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, he swaggered into the rocky island. After he entered Dragon Island, he noticed that the 5-cloud peach flower miasma was getting more and more beautiful. The poisonous gas that even the dragon tribe kept a respectful distance from was gathering towards the 5-cloud peach flower miasma bit by bit. On the Dragon Island, there were ruins everywhere. There was not a trace of life. Fang Qingshan walked for a long time, but he did not see anything. However, he was not anxious at all. Even if he did not find anything this time, as long as the 5-cloud peach blossom miasma completely absorbed the dragon breath poison, it would still be a great harvest. The 5-cloud peach blossom miasma was refined by Fang Qingshan using the 1,000-year-old aloe from the rotten peach mountain of Mount Shu. Although it was hindered by the dragon elephant and the red-haired old ancestor, as well as the capacity of the treasure, it could not withstand it. He did not take it out completely, but the 5-cloud peach blossom miasma was also a peerless treasure. As Fang Qingshan's cultivation increased over the years, he constantly refined it and integrated all kinds of miasma and poisonous gas into it. The power of the five-cloud peach blossom miasma increased day by day, especially when he was in the flesh swamp. This time, if the dragon breath poison was completely absorbed, it would be just a matter of time before it transformed into a Dao treasure. Hence, Fang Qingshan decided not to search for the treasures on the Dragon Island. He chose a place and activated the five-cloud peach blossom miasma with all his might, beginning to absorb the dragon breath poison. In an instant, a storm was brewing on the Dragon Island. The seemingly harmless dragon breath poison began to boil, scaring those who wanted to fish in troubled waters and causing them to flee in panic. Fortunately, the dragon breath poison did not spread out. Instead, it gathered towards a whirlpool in the center. One could vaguely see peach blossoms blooming. It was very beautiful. However, no one dared to underestimate it. They could tell that those peach blossoms were actually devouring the dragon breath poison. To them, the dragon breath poison was already something that they couldn't touch, not to mention the peach blossoms that were even more powerful than the dragon breath poison. As time slowly passed, the poisonous gas in the periphery was devoured, and the Dragon Island was slowly revealed before everyone. This should be something worth celebrating, but no one could find the location of the treasures despite their search. Then, the only problem was that the location of the treasures was behind the dragon breath poison. They didn't dare to provoke the miasma, not to mention that the dragon breath poison was gathered like ink. Just when Fang Qingshan was devouring the dragon breath poison and refining the five-cloud peach blossom miasma, Mu Chen's group had finally caught up. Naturally, only Lin Jing came to the Dragon Island at this moment. Mu Chen was still in seclusion. Aside from Lin Jing, the daughter of the Flame Emperor, Xiao Xiao, had also arrived. The two of them had obviously seen the changes on Dragon Island as well. Both of them were bold and talented people. They rushed towards Fang Qingshan's location one after the other. Wow, how beautiful! When the two of them approached, they were instantly attracted by the five-cloud peach blossom miasma. As for the poison, it wasn't something that they placed in their hearts. It's actually him. At the same time, Lin Jing had also seen Fang Qingshan. Although she was a little startled, she suddenly understood. Only someone like him could possess such a treasure and still dare to openly refine it here. After participating in the Golden Dragon Disciple selection, Lin Jing's curiosity for Fang Qingshan had increased. Even she had to spend a great deal of effort, but Fang Qingshan didn't even need to exert any effort. Thus, the gap between the two of them could be imagined. Most importantly, Fang Qingshan's cultivation was actually lower than everyone else. Lin Jing and Xiao Xiao had naturally noticed each other as well. Seeing that the other party wasn't any inferior to them and was similarly beautiful, they couldn't help feeling curious. Where did the other party come from? One of them was holding a white jade gore that was enveloped by a white jade membrane, while the other had a small snake coiled around her shoulder, sucking away all the poisonous gas that approached. The two of them just stood quietly not far away from Fang Qingshan and watched him refine his treasure. They didn't look for the real treasure on the Dragon Island. Lin Jing was curious about Fang Qingshan, while Xiao Xiao was attracted by the five-cloud peach blossom miasma and wanted to exchange it with Fang Qingshan. Fang Qingshan was naturally aware of Lin Jing and Xiao Xiao's arrival, but since they didn't disturb his refining, Fang Qingshan didn't bother about them. The five-cloud peach blossom miasma had a deep foundation and was already a peerless treasure. It was only a step away from becoming a Dao artifact. This time, the dragon breath was the final catalyst. Buzz. As all the dragon breath was devoured by the five-cloud peach blossom miasma, the five-cloud peach blossom miasma expanded and shrunk. After 9 times, an illusory peach tree appeared. Chapter 207. Good. The five-cloud peach blossom miasma has finally become a Dao artifact. Seeing that, Fang Qingshan could not help but feel overjoyed. The five-cloud peach blossom miasma was personally refined by Fang Qingshan. It was also the only magic treasure he had. Thus, he had a different feeling for it. Seeing that it was gradually falling behind him, He did not expect that after devouring the dragon breath poison, it would actually transform into a Tao artifact. This was truly worthy of celebration. This treasure is called the Five-Cloud Peach Blossom Miasma. Right at this moment, Xiao Xiao spoke. I wonder if you can give it to me in exchange? Hearing that, Fang Qingshan turned to look. Although he was used to seeing beauties, he could not help but be stunned when he saw Xiao Xiao. What an enchanting beauty! This is a magic treasure that I personally refined. I do not wish to exchange it. My apologies. Although she was a beauty, Fang Qingshan did not hesitate to reject her. Are you not going to consider it? Be it magic powers, magic treasures, or natural treasures, I am willing to exchange them all. Xiao Xiao truly liked this beautiful magic treasure. She could not bear to give it up, but she also did not want to snatch it by force. Thus, she waved her hand. In an instant, a dazzling array of treasures appeared. Seeing that, Fang Qingshan and Ling Jing could not help but feel shocked. Ling Jing was surprised at where Xiao Xiao had come from. As for Fang Qingshan, he felt emotional. As expected of the daughter of the Flame Emperor, her actions were truly extraordinary. However, looking at those magic treasures, there was actually more than one Tao artifact. My apologies. Even so, Fang Qingshan still shook his head. Xiao Xiao felt somewhat disappointed. On the other hand, Ling Jing had a higher opinion of Fang Qingshan. He was a man of principle. However, seeing that, Fang Qingshan changed the topic. Although I cannot give you the Five-Cloud Peach Blossom Miasma, I can give you the blood refinement method in exchange. Really? Xiao Xiao did not expect things to turn out this way. Although she did not obtain the Five-Cloud Peach Flower Miasma, she obtained a refinement method. Refining it would be a piece of cake. Fang Qingshan smiled. He took out the Five-Cloud Peach Flower Miasma and tossed it to Xiao Xiao. Hey, Fang Qingshan, I like this stuff too. Can you give me one? Ling Jing was still praising Fang Qingshan's principles, but she never expected that the script would be changed in the blink of an eye. When she saw that Xiao Xiao had obtained the Five-Cloud Peach Flower Miasma, she felt an itch in her heart, so she gnashed her teeth and asked Fang Qingshan for it. No problem. Fang Qingshan was straightforward. Exchanging one or two didn't make any difference to him. Furthermore, since he gave it to Xiao Xiao and not Ling Jing, wouldn't he be provoking an enemy? Many thanks, young Master Fang. Xiao Xiao glanced at Ling Jing and ignored her. She then pointed at the treasures before her and said to Fang Qingshan, "You can pick one if you like it." Oomph. Ling Jing coldly snorted. She waved her hand and tossed out a bunch of treasures as well, which complemented Xiao Xiao's treasures. Or rather, she wasn't willing to be outdone and said to Fang Qingshan, "You pick one as well." Gulp. After Fang Qingshan successfully refined the Five-Cloud Peach Flower Miasma, this place was no longer a forbidden ground. Those who had been waiting impatiently for a long time flocked over. When they saw the treasures tossed out by Ling Jing and Xiao Xiao, their eyes instantly turned red and they gulped down mouthfuls of saliva. Oomph. Not only did Fang Qingshan's group of three show no fear, they even knitted their brows unhappily and unleashed their auras at the same time. Lin Jing took off a jade bracelet from her wrist. A surge of aura soared into the sky. Perfected grade 9. Xiao Xiao gently took a step forward and the space around her trembled. Her aura wasn't any weaker than Ling Jing's. Perfected grade 9. Although Fang Qingshan was only in the Golden Core realm, which seemed to be lower than them, his aura surpassed Ling Jing and Xiao Xiao. Whoosh! The three auras swept towards the crowd like a tidal wave. Humans die for wealth and birds die for food. Everyone who was blinded by greed felt as though they were splashed with a bucket of cold water. They quivered and their bodies stiffened. What are you waiting for? Get lost. Among the three of them, apart from Fang Qingshan, Ling Jing and Xiao Xiao were surprised. Ling Jing knew Fang Qingshan's strength well, but he didn't expect Xiao Xiao to be on par with him. Other than being surprised by Ling Jing's strength, Xiao Xiao was even more shocked by Fang Qingshan's aura that suppressed her and Ling Jing. However, although they were surprised, they didn't show it on their faces. The three of them looked at each other and shouted at the surrounding people. Although there were many geniuses among them, they couldn't be compared to Feng Qingshan's group. A wise man submits to circumstances. After seeing the strength of Feng Qingshan's group, they immediately turned around and left. No one tried to mislead the crowd and attack them. Seeing that the irrelevant people had left, Feng Qingshan took a ball of flame from Xiao Xiao and a jade-like ice from Ling Jing. Then he said, "Let's go and see what treasures are hidden on this dragon island." "All right, let's go." Ling Jing and Xiao Xiao looked at each other and nodded at the same time. This time, Ling Jing led the way. With a wave of his hand, a flying insect the size of an infant's fist appeared. The insect had a long horn on its head that was constantly waving. This was the treasure-seeking insect that many people yearned for. It was similar to the treasure-seeking mouse that Feng Qingshan had seen in the past. It could sense the subtle fluctuations of heaven and earth in a harsh environment. At the same time, it could quickly find the treasures hidden under the ground. With the treasure-seeking insect leading the way, Feng Qingshan's group quickly arrived before a huge ruin. Looking at the scale, this should be the core of the Dragon Manor. Unfortunately, it encountered a great calamity and turned into ruins. Amidst the ruins, there was a white bone throne that was still in perfect condition. There was a powerful pressure remaining on the white bone throne. Clearly, there was a powerful aura remaining on it. Clearly, in ancient times, there was a powerful figure sitting on this white bone throne. At the top of the white bone throne, there was a crystal pearl the size of a human head. The pearl was round and the light wasn't dazzling. However, one could vaguely hear the roar of a dragon that contained a vast amount of spiritual energy. Spiritual Dragon Pearl. It was an inherited treasure of the dragon clan. Before some dragons died, they would seal their spiritual energy and turn it into a dragon pearl for their descendants. If one refined it, not only could they obtain the surging spiritual energy, but they could also strengthen the power of their bloodline. Feng Qingshan had once cultivated the dragon elephant prajna art and refined the dragon elephant blood essence, so this item was quite useful to him. However, there was only one spiritual dragon pearl, while there were three of them. "How do we split it?" Feng Qingshan asked. The three looked at each other, and Xiao Xiao hesitantly said, "I wonder if you can give it to me?" It wasn't that she wanted to refine it, but the spiritual dragon pearl had a great effect on the sky-devouring python on her shoulder. Chapter 208. I can exchange it for something else. Xiao Xiao also knew that she wasn't familiar with them, so it was impossible for her to take everything for herself. Hence, she wanted to obtain the spiritual dragon pearl herself and compensate Feng Qingshan with something else. I have no problem with that. Seeing Xiao Xiao looking at him, Feng Qingshan waved his hand and said indifferently. Although the spiritual dragon pearl was useful to him, it wasn't something he couldn't live without. It would be the same even if he exchanged it for another 5 elemental essence or other useful treasures. Although he knew that this person was the daughter of the Flame Emperor and many people would flock to her if she announced her identity, Feng Qingshan didn't directly say that he wouldn't participate in the treasure division. He wasn't from this world, so it wouldn't be of much use even if he asked for a favor from the Flame Emperor. Furthermore, those who were unaccountably solicitous were hiding evil intentions. If he directly said that he didn't want it and that they could split it among themselves, Xiao Xiao and Feng Qingshan would probably doubt his intentions. I have no problem with that either. Seeing that Feng Qingshan did not object, Ling Jing shrugged his shoulders and agreed indifferently. Although the spiritual dragon pearl was rare, she had seen all kinds of treasures with her identity. Compared to Feng Qingshan, it wasn't something she couldn't live without. However, Xiao Xiao was different. This was the first time that Ling Jing saw a woman who wasn't inferior to her in all aspects. Although 2 tigers couldn't live on the same mountain, unless one was male and the other was female. However, she was more curious, appreciative, and also compared. If she could befriend Xiao Xiao with a mere spiritual dragon pearl, Ling Jing felt that it was a worthwhile transaction. Thank you, little sister. If there's anything here that catches your eye, feel free to take it. Same goes for young Master Feng. Xiao Xiao said gratefully. In this regard, Fang Qingshan and Ling Jing didn't refuse, and each picked one item from Xiao Xiao's collection. Then, Xiao Xiao was about to head to the ruins to take the treasure, but she was stopped by Fang Qingshan. Wait! Hearing that, Xiao Xiao looked at Fang Qingshan in astonishment. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan smiled faintly and said, "As long as it's a treasure, how can it not be guarded?" As he spoke, Fang Qingshan flicked his finger, and a sharp ray of sword light tore through the sky and shot towards the ruins. Pull one hair, or the whole body will move. It was as if Fang Qingshan's sword had triggered a restriction in the ruins. Bang, bang, bang. A series of explosions rang out from within the ruins. Countless boulders were forcefully shattered before the earth started to crumble and collapse. After a while, the dust settled and a spirit array appeared. The original white bone throne was the base of the array. However, the gazes of the three of them were more focused on the bottom of the throne. That's because there was a white dragon sitting there. However, that dragon was shrouded in a deathly aura, and there wasn't any vitality in its eyes. What a good spiritual corpse array, using the white bone throne as the foundation and a dragon corpse as the suppressor. Even a perfected 9th grade sovereign would have his strength suppressed by 30%. Both Lin Jing and Xiao Xiao were knowledgeable, so they could tell the details of this array with a glance. If only that fellow Mu Chun was here, Lin Jing said. Mu Chun? Xiao Xiao's eyes flickered with shock. Yeah, that guy's a spiritual array master, and his attainments are extraordinary. Ling Jing explained. Why don't I call him over? There's no need for that. Although this array is powerful, how can the three of us be comparable to ordinary perfected 9th grade sovereigns? Fang Qingshan shook his head and continued. Let's break the array with our strength. Although the three of us aren't afraid of others, it will be troublesome if other experts come over. All right. Ling Jing and Xiao Xiao did not refute Fang Qingshan's words. Then, let's break this array together. 5 elements of the heavens and earth, lightning annihilation. Fang Qingshan raised his hand and pointed. A 5-colored thunderbolt, as thick as a bucket, descended from the sky. A single spark can start a prairie fire. Xiao Xiao waved her hand, and a divine ability flew out. Instantly, a world of flames descended. The extremity of martial shatter the heavens and earth. Ling Jing also wasn't willing to be outdone. He took a step forth and threw a jab forth. Instantly, space fluctuated and a wave swept out in all directions. Fang Qingshan's group of 3 couldn't be judged with common sense. If the 3 of them joined forces, they would even dare to fight a lesser Earth sovereign. Buzz! When the lightning, fire, and fist attacks landed on the spiritual array, a torrential energy surged out from the array. The spiritual dragon pearl on the throne radiated with brilliance, as if it wanted to shatter the mountains and rivers. The dragon beneath the throne also seemed to have come to life, emanating a draconic might. But the array had already been damaged, and with Fang Qingshan's group of 3 joining forces, it couldn't withstand the pressure even after a brief moment. First, the nodes shattered, then the spiritual energy became chaotic. In the end, it was riddled with holes, and with a bang, it exploded. As the shock waves spread out, the peach flower miasma on Fang Qingshan fell. The white gore in Ling Jing's hand radiated, and the lantern in Xiao Zhao's hand illuminated the surroundings. No matter how the deathly aura charged at the array, it didn't move. After a brief moment, the 3 of them exchanged a look and smiled. Looking at the ruins, the spiritual corpse array had completely collapsed. Leave the rest to me. Xiao Xiao smiled. She patted the snake on her shoulder. Rustle. The 7-colored snake couldn't wait any longer. When it received Xiao Zhao's order, it instantly stood up and turned into a rainbow light, shooting towards the spiritual dragon pearl on the throne. But halfway through, it was stopped by the dead dragon. Although the spiritual array was broken, the item that was used to suppress the array wasn't destroyed. After years of being in the array and being refined by the deathly aura, the dragon's corpse had already turned into a zombie. It instinctively protected the spiritual dragon pearl. Seeing the seven-colored snake heading towards the spiritual dragon pearl, it immediately opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of deathly aura. This deathly aura was even more powerful than the dragon breath poison from before. Everywhere it passed, even space would darken. Fortunately, the seven-colored snake wasn't a vegetarian. It was a descendant of the sky-devouring python that belonged to the Flame Emperor's wife. It was a mutated species that wasn't inferior to the dragon clan. Not to mention that one was dead and one was alive. One was weak, while the other was at its peak. With a shake of its body, the seven-colored snake expanded in the wind and turned into a sky-devouring python. It opened its mouth as if it could even swallow the heavens. Not only was the deathly aura spat out by the giant dragon swallowed by it, but the giant dragon was also pulled up bit by bit, falling into its stomach. Since the sky-devouring python was a python, although it didn't evolve into a dragon, devouring the dragon clan could still purify and improve its bloodline. Although the giant dragon was dead, it could still bring great benefits to it. The giant dragon might have been very powerful in the past, but the feathered phoenix was inferior to a chicken. Without any surprise, it was swallowed by the sky-devouring python. Without the dragon corpse blocking its way, the sky-devouring python naturally arrived in front of the spiritual dragon pearl. It opened its mouth and swallowed it. In an instant, Fang Qingshan and Xiao Xiao could feel that the color of the sky-devouring python had become even more gorgeous. Chapter 209. Congratulations! Congratulations! After devouring the dragon corpse and spiritual dragon pearl, the color of the sky-devouring python's body became even more gorgeous. The spiritual energy in its body was also surging, but its spirit was a little dispirited. It returned to Xiao Zhao's side and burrowed back into her sleeve. But Fang Qingshan and Ling Jing knew that the sky-devouring python's strength would definitely soar once more. Thus, the two of them congratulated at the same time. It's all thanks to little sister and young Master Fang. Xiao Xiao clearly sensed the changes in the heaven-devouring python, and a joyous smile involuntarily appeared on her face. At the same time, a light rune suddenly appeared on the back of Xiao Zhao's hand. It was a coiling dragon. Fang Qingshan knew that this should be the token of the Dragon Mansion Lord. Since we have obtained the treasures here, what do you guys intend to do? Fang Qingshan asked. I'm going to meet up with Mu Chun and Nine Nether. Ling Jing said. Mu Chun? Xiao Xiao couldn't help recalling that fellow from the Dragon Phoenix Haven when she heard that name once again. Yeah, why does Big Sister Xiao know him? Ling Jing curiously asked. I wonder if they're the same person. Xiao Xiao shook her head as she said with uncertainty. Since that's the case, then come with me. Ling Jing invited. Sure. Xiao Xiao did not reject after a brief pondering. Since that's the case, then I'll take my leave first. Fang Qingshan did not want to follow them to meet Mu Chun, so he cupped his hands towards the two of them and leaped forth, turning into a five-colored streak of light that streaked across the horizon. Leave? If you want to leave, then hand over the treasures from the Dragon Island. As soon as he finished speaking, a group of people surrounded a handsome man in a golden robe. He had a calm demeanor and was walking over. It's him. Ling Jing couldn't help exclaiming when she saw him. Why does little sister know him? Xiao Xiao asked. He's the crown prince of the Xia Empire, ranked 4th on the Great Law Continent's expert ranking, Xia Yu. Lin Jing replied. The reason why she still had an impression of him was because Xia Yu had an ulterior motive when they entered the spatial passage of the ancient Haven Palace. He actually tried to destroy their spatial passage and kill them in the spatial turbulence. He was truly vicious. So it's an old friend? Looking at Ling Jing, Xia Yu smiled. I wonder why Mu Chun isn't with them. I was just about to look for him. There's no need to chat. I'm not familiar with you. Along with Xia Yu's words, he was interrupted by a cold voice and saw Mu Chun walking in with Nine Nether. When they came out of seclusion, they discovered that Ling Jing was missing, so they came looking for him. How dare you? It's your honor to be able to talk to Brother Xia. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Before Xia Yu could speak, A man beside him had a ferocious light flashing in his eyes as he reprimanded. Following that, he took a step forward and appeared before Mu Chun like a specter. He spread out his 5 fingers, and spiritual light gathered, instantly forming into a huge hand that covered the sky as it slammed down towards Mu Chun. Hee, you dare to speak to my big brother in such a manner? Mu Chun, your death date is coming. Seeing that man making a move, Xia Hong, who had lost an arm, viciously looked at Mu Chun with joy in his eyes. Although Mu Chun was powerful, there was still a huge gap between him and the person that made a move. That's because that person was Lucio, ranked 15th on the expert ranking, 5 ranks higher than him. His physique was powerful, and he had once killed 3 ninth-grade sovereigns with a single punch. A summer insect cannot speak of ice. How could he know that Mu Chin's strength would change with the main character halo? Not to mention Lucio, even his big brother might not be able to defeat Mu Chun. Indeed, facing Lucio's fist, aside from a cold light flashing in Mu Chin's eyes, there wasn't any change in his expression. He did not dodge and threw a fist forth as well. Roar. When Mu Chun threw a jab forth, a draconic roar and phoenix cry resounded at the same time. The true dragon and phoenix spirits appeared on his right arm and stretched out their claws and phoenix wings, fusing together with Mu Chin's fingers. Boom! When the 2 fists clashed, the ferociousness on Lucio's face had yet to fade, and a trace of shock flashed in his eyes. Because at this moment, an earth-shattering force flowed through his arm and surged toward him like a flood. Without any resistance, Lucio was like an ordinary person that had been rammed by a truck. He was like a kite that had its string broken as he flew back. Interesting. Seeing that Lucio couldn't even take a punch from Mu Chun, Xia Yu's eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment, but he did not place it in his heart. That's because aside from him, there were 10-odd people around him that were all ranked in the top 15. You guys can continue. I'll take my leave first. Seeing Mu Chun appear to be the center of the world, attracting all of the cannon fire, Fong Qingshan could not help shaking his head. Replying in a lazy manner, he walked towards the exit, step by step. You can leave, but you have to hand over the treasures that you obtained from the Dragon Island and the 5-color magical treasure. Xia Yu cast a glance at Fong Qingshan and casually said with his eyelids narrowed. Clearly, he knew that Fong Qingshan had devoured the dragon breath poison to refine the pentacloud peach flower miasma. Oh, you're so sure that you can take me down? What if I don't hand it over? Fong Qingshan faintly said. If you don't hand it over, then you can die. Besides Xia Yu, a monkey-like man swiftly spoke out. Since that's the case, then you can die. Fong Qingshan indifferently glanced at that man. In the next moment, that monkey-like man fell to the ground without any signs. His face was vivid, but there wasn't any expression in his eyes. Yin-Yang-I. This was a great divine ability that Fong Qingshan had obtained from Zhang Jiao's heavenly book, and it wasn't any weaker than the heaven and earth furnace. The effect was similar to the yin-yang mirror that Qi Jingzi possessed, one of the 12 golden immortals of the Enlightenment sect. Russell. At the sight of this scene, a commotion broke out in the surroundings. Although that monkey-like man looked a little wretched, his strength wasn't weak. However, he couldn't even withstand a glance from Fong Qingshan. So how could everyone not be shocked? Aren't you taking it too far? Xia Yu was both startled and enraged in his heart. Naturally, he was shocked at Fong Qingshan's strength. He was angry at the fact that one had to look at the owner before beating a dog. Yet, Fong Qingshan had directly killed his follower. Wasn't this a slap to his face? Too far. Fong Qingshan indifferently swept a glance at him. Would you feel that it's too far if I place my attention on you? How can that be the same? Xia Hong, who was behind Xia Yu, smiled coldly. My big brother is the crown prince of the great Xia dynasty, ranked 4th on the expert ranking. He's also a golden dragon disciple of the ancient Haven Palace. How could an ordinary person like you compare to him? Chapter 2:10. What a great reputation. While everyone was shocked by Xia Hong's words, Lin Jing, who was standing beside Fong Qingshan, suddenly laughed. What are you laughing at? Xiao Hong looked at Ling Jing, who was laughing as if it was a joke, and barked in embarrassment. What am I laughing at? After a long while, Lin Jing stopped laughing and pointed at Fong Qingshan. Do you know who he is? Him? He's just a nameless pawn. Xiao Hong replied. A nameless pawn? Lin Jing widened his eyes with disbelief on his face before he sighed. Now, I believe that the two of you aren't someone that ordinary people like us can be compared to. It's good that you know. Xiao Hong smiled with pride. Shut up. Xiao Yu knitted his brows when he saw that Xiao Hong couldn't hear the weird tone in Fong Qingshan's voice. Who are you? Fong Qingshan. Fong Qingshan faintly spat out his name. Fong Qingshan? Xiao Yu seemed to have heard of this name before, but he couldn't recall it. It's him. So he's Fong Qingshan, the one that easily defeated Lu Shan, the 19th on the elite ranking? The one that forced Su Qingyin to apologize, Fong Qingshan. I heard that Fong Qingshan is also a Golden Dragon disciple. Xiao Yu couldn't recall it, but the surrounding people did and exclaimed. Hearing everyone's exclamations, Xiao Yu's face slightly changed. He was a Golden Dragon disciple, so he naturally knew how tough it was to obtain this position. Since Fong Qingshan could become a Golden Dragon disciple, he naturally wasn't someone easy to deal with. If he could become a Golden Dragon disciple, he could resort to trickery like Mu Chun, but it was unbelievable that Su Qingyin had to apologize. Su Qingyin was ranked second on the elite ranking, higher than him. Although he might not be afraid of her, they were on the same level, especially the insect master, who was tough to deal with. Yet, such an expert was actually forced to apologize. Even if there were other reasons, he was certain that even Su Qingyin was fearful of Fong Qingshan's strength. After knowing Fong Qingshan's identity, everyone in the Xia Empire was dumbfounded, especially Xiao Hong, whose face had turned pale. He never expected that Fong Qingshan would also be a Golden Dragon disciple, and could even force Su Qingyin to apologize. One must know that Su Qingyin was ranked above his elder brother. Right now, the only thing that Fong Qingshan was inferior to his elder brother was the force standing behind him. His elder brother had the Xia Empire behind him, while no one knew of Fong Qingshan's background. However, to be able to cultivate such a genius, how could an ordinary person or force be able to do so? They've kicked an iron plate this time. Everyone couldn't help rejoicing in their misfortune. Serves them right. Everyone had long been dissatisfied with their overbearing behavior of forbidding anyone else from approaching this place. It was only because of the formation of this wave of people that they had no choice but to submit to that they were simply too dazzling. There's always someone stronger in the world. Now that they saw them suffering, everyone felt as if they had eaten ice cream in the summer and felt a chill in their hearts. So it's Brother Fong. I'm sorry for my lack of manners this time. Xiao Yu was someone who knew when to let go. After knowing Fong Qingshan's identity and strength, he still cupped his hands and apologized, despite his unsightly expression. At the same time, Xiao Yu's sinister gaze fell onto Lin Jing and Mu Chen's party. Fong Qingshan couldn't be provoked right now. Thus, Mu Chen and the rest were implicated, and the new and old grudges surged in their hearts. Oh, you're thinking that we're pushovers because young Master Fong can't be provoked, right? Seeing Xiao Yu's gaze, Xiao Xiao couldn't help smiling. Little sister Lin, Mu Chun, were being bullied like a persimmon. Mu Chun, Lin Jing, Xiao Xiao, and Nine Nether exchanged a look and smile before they unleashed their auras, along with their identity plaques. Thereafter, everyone saw 4 perfected 9th-grade sovereigns soaring into the sky, along with 4 golden pillars of light that soared into the sky from the direction of Mu Chen's party. The momentum was extremely shocking, with 3 dragons and a dragon soaring into the sky. Sensing the dense pressure and the dazzling golden light, everyone was dumbfounded as they looked at the pillar of light in the sky. Their eyes were filled with shock. Good heavens, since when did rank 9 Great Perfection and Golden Dragon disciples become like cabbages? The moment they appeared, they piled up. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. If Xiao Yu's face was dark at this scene, Xiao Hong wouldn't be able to accept it. Forget about Fong Qingshan. Since Fong Qingshan could defeat Su Qingyin, who was ranked higher than his big brother and obtained the identity of a golden dragon disciple. Mu Chun, someone that he had never placed in his eyes, had actually become a golden dragon disciple, which made Xia Hong feel as if his view of life had collapsed. "Shut up." Xia Yu ferociously glared at Xia Hong with a dark expression. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed the flames in his heart and deeply looked at Mu Chen's party before waving his hand. "Let's go. Go. Let's wait." They wanted to leave, but Fang Qingshan didn't want them to leave, coming and going as he pleased, pouncing on those that were pushovers and retreating when faced with an iron plate. How could things in the world be so simple? "Yeah, why are you in such a rush to leave?" Lin Jing chuckled. "What? Is there anything else?" A trace of killing intent flashed in Xia Yu's eyes, but he suppressed it. For golden dragons and a golden Jiao dragon disciple, even if they had the advantage in numbers, Xia Yu couldn't see any chance of winning. "I don't dare to give any advice, but are you guys going to leave without any expression?" Fang Qingshan faintly said. "Expression?" Xia Yu knitted his brows and couldn't react in time. "Young Master Xia, he wants you to apologize." Someone beside Xia Yu reminded in a soft voice. "Apologize? Are you insane?" Xia Hong couldn't help roaring with indignation. "You can give it a try and see if Su Qingyin and I are just putting on a show." Fang Qingshan said. "Do you really want to do this? You must know that we will meet in the future, so we should leave a line in life." Xia Yu said word by word. "I also know that weeds will grow again if we don't remove the roots." Fang Qingshan coldly said as he looked at Mu Chen's party. "What do you guys think? I feel that young Master Fang's words are true. Yeah, if we don't kill the snake, we'll be harmed instead. There's no such thing as being a thief for 1,000 days." Mu Chun and the rest exchanged a look and smiled. At the same time, they moved and surrounded Xia Yu's party. Chapter 211. Along with the movements of Mu Chen's group, everyone was startled before they turned around and retreated without a word. When deities fought, mortals would suffer. Fang Qingshan and Xia Yu's group were either on the elite ranking or perfected 9th grade Sovereign Realm Golden Dragon disciples. If they fought, it would be akin to the fish in the moat being implicated, and it wasn't something that they could watch from the sidelines. Although observing from a close distance would be beneficial to his cultivation, his main objective in coming to the ancient Haven Palace was to search for opportunities. At that time, he wouldn't be killed before he found any opportunities. That would be even more unjust than Do-E. After the irrelevant people retreated, the whole scene became quiet. The air seemed to be frozen, and the atmosphere was especially oppressive. Although Xia Yu's group had the advantage in numbers, they were in a disadvantageous position compared to Fang Qingshan's group of 5. At this moment, even Xia Hong kept his mouth shut and did not dare to speak. "What's the matter? You think that you can take us down with just the 5 of you?" Xia Yu practically couldn't suppress the killing intent in his heart. He, Xia Yu, was born as a proud son of the heavens. His path of growth had always been smooth, and he had never encountered something like this. Not only did he fail in his robbery, he was even threatened by someone instead. It was truly a case of going for wool and coming home shorn. "The 5 of us aren't enough," Fang Qingshan casually said. Good. No one has ever dared to treat me in this manner." Xia Yu gnashed his teeth with a sinister expression and smiled from the extreme anger. "I'm willing to be the first." Fang Qingshan was also a little impatient as he continued. "I'll give you 2 choices. The first is to compensate with gifts like Su Qingyin and write it off. If you want to take revenge on me in the future, I'll accept it. The second option is to fight and see who will have the last laugh." Xia Yu wanted to fight it out with Fang Qingshan, but his rationale told him that he couldn't do that. As the crown prince of the great Xia dynasty, who was ranked 4th on the list of powerhouses, he deserved his reputation. However, he was not decisive enough in killing and liked to plan before taking action. Xia Yu couldn't see any chance of winning if he fought with Fang Qingshan's group. In the end, the best outcome would be for both sides to be heavily injured. But if he was heavily injured, then he would no longer be fated with the opportunity in the ancient Haven Palace, not to mention that there might be others trying to take advantage of him. Thus, he did not dare to gamble. I admit defeat this time. After a brief silence, Xiaoyu gave in the end. Firstly, he had no chance of winning. Secondly, the opportunity in the ancient Haven Palace was more important. However, he made a mental note of Fang Qingshan and the others. Don't let him get the chance, or else. Xiaoyu waved his hand and tossed 5 million drops of sovereign spiritual liquid to Fang Qingshan before turning around to leave. This time, Fang Qingshan and the rest did not cause any more trouble. If they continued to provoke Xiaoyu, then Xiaoyu might really fall out with them. Although they weren't afraid, they also did not want to fight with Xiaoyu's group at this moment. They had the same worries as Xiaoyu, since they placed more importance on the opportunity in the ancient Haven Palace. Who knows how many people were hiding in the dark, trying to benefit from it. If they fought, then others would be the ones benefiting from it. Come, everyone has a share. Fang Qingshan waved his hand and split Xiaoyu's sovereign spiritual liquid into 5 portions, which was exactly 1 million drops of sovereign spiritual liquid for each of them. Mu Chun and the rest did not refuse and chuckled as they received it. After that, Lin Jing and Xiao Zhao's identities were exposed. Aside from Fang Qingshan and Mu Chun, the 3 ladies were shocked and felt a sense of appreciation for each other. After leaving the Dragon Island, no one went to the other islands. Fang Qingshan did not want to waste his effort, since Mu Chen's group had already obtained the Wind and Dragon Mansions, so he did not want to attract too much attention. The target of the 5 of them was the Heavenly Lake. Even with Lin Jing and Xiao Zhao's status, they placed great importance on the baptism of the Heavenly Lake. Not only could it solidify their foundation, but it could also help them break through the bottleneck of the Earth Sovereign Realm. Along the way, with the speed of the 5 of them, they quickly passed through the endless chain of floating islands where the 9 mansions were. As far as the eye could see, the sky was high and the clouds were light. Their field of vision suddenly became spacious. The only thing that did not change was the ancient aura that made others feel fearful. After passing through the 9 Mansions Islands, they could see the Heavenly Lake from afar. However, the sky before them wasn't easy to cross. Although there was nothing before them, it was filled with restrictions. Beams of light, each as thick as an arm, shot down from the spirit clouds in the sky like searchlights. If you thought that those beams were harmless, then you're courting death. There was a spiritual array set up in those spiritual clouds. Spiritual energy gathered within and refracted downwards, enveloping the heavens and earth like a huge net. Those pillars of light were extremely sharp. Even if a 9th grade sovereign were to come into contact with them, they would have their arms and legs chopped off. However, it was fortunate that there was Mu Chun, a spiritual array master, amongst the 5 of them. Fang Qingshan could rely on the Void Escape sword art to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. Although this pillar of light was troublesome, as long as everyone was careful, they would be able to pass through it easily. When they passed through the spiritual clouds, they could hear a roar from afar that sounded like a torrential downpour. What was even more surprising was that just by hearing this voice, the spiritual energy and true qi in Fang Qingshan and the others' bodies began to boil involuntarily. It was as if they were experiencing rain after a long drought. Especially the world tree in Fang Qingshan's body, which was extremely active at this moment. Roots swarmed forth, and Fang Qingshan could sense the boundless spiritual energy in his sea of consciousness surging over, forming into a small stream. I never thought that the world tree would be able to pass through the restrictions of the Heavenly Lake and devour the spiritual energy in it. Although Fang Qingshan was surprised at the beginning, he soon felt that it was reasonable. The world tree was an existence that could even pass through the immortal mortal barrier. Even the Tai Yuan Immortal Mansion couldn't restrict it. Although the restrictions on the Heavenly Lake were powerful, they were still lacking to stop the world tree. Who knows? I might be able to make use of the Heavenly Lake to break through my bottleneck, and I might even be able to accumulate my foundation. A crazy thought rose in Fang Qingshan's mind, which was to use the world tree to devour as much spiritual energy as possible. The Yellow Springs diagram contained the entire Yellow Springs River. Fong Qingshan did not expect to be able to devour the entire Yellow Springs River. However, even if he could devour 10 to 20% of it, he would not have to worry about the lack of spirit chi when he cultivated to the longevity mystic realm. Seeing that the heavenly lake was before them, everyone's eyes flashed with excitement, and they couldn't wait to increase their speed as they flew forth. With the twists and turns of the mountain, their field of vision seemed to have instantly widened. However, before they could take a good look, they felt a wave of blazing white light pouncing towards them, causing Fong Qingshan and the rest to subconsciously close their eyes. Chapter 2:12. Hiss. In that instant, when they opened their eyes, everyone sucked in a cold breath. However, in front of them was a vast and boundless ocean. The azure color was especially enchanting against the dark and serene background that resembled the starry sky of the universe. Ripples sparkled with a crystallized luster that looked like dazzling stars. Occasionally, the wind would rise and waves would surge. Raging waves would slap against the shore, sweeping up 1,000 piles of snow and scattering countless crystals that were like dust. It was a rather magnificent sight, and they were all formed from spirit energy that had been condensed to the limit. It wasn't surprising that Lin Jing, Xiao Xiao, and Fong Qingshan couldn't help sucking in a cold breath. They were deeply shocked by this scene. What a great heavenly lake! What a great ancient haven palace! In the end, Fong Qingshan was the first to recover from his shock and exclaimed in admiration. The ancient haven palace was truly worthy of being one of the top-tiered forces in the Great Thousand World. Just this heavenly lake alone was enough to show their foundation. Lin Jing and Xiao Xiao nodded their heads in agreement. This was the foundation of an overlord of the Great Law Continent. It was truly shocking. When Fong Qingshan's party arrived at the heavenly lake, everyone else had also arrived. At this moment, those that could come here were at least pinnacle 9th grade sovereigns, with many of them being nurtured by top-tiered forces in the Great Law Continent. At the same time, there are also some unfamiliar but powerful faces that might be from forces outside the Great Law Continent, like Lin Jing and Xiao Xiao. Aside from Su Qingyin and Xia Yu, Fong Qingshan also saw Zhu Yan, the young patriarch of the Fire Spirit clan, with a cultivation at the perfected 9th grade sovereign realm. The divine flame celestial body that he cultivated was ranked 34th on the sovereign celestial body ranking. He was one of the top-tiered sovereign celestial bodies of the Fire Spirit clan and had never suffered a single defeat in the Great Law Continent. Garuda, the holy child of the Saint Demonic Palace, had also cultivated an immortal celestial body like Mu Chun. Fong Qingshan's group could be considered to have been ridiculed quite a bit. Apart from themselves, they had offended almost everyone who was at the top of the ranking board. Fortunately, they were powerful, so they didn't care about these things. They stood alone in a corner, happy and content. As for the others, seeing that the Heaven Lake was right in front of them, they didn't want to compete with them, so they all restrained themselves. After an unknown period of time, when the area before the Celestial River was in an uproar, 2 beams of light suddenly shot up into the sky beside Fong Qingshan. Looking at it, Fong Qingshan realized that it was the token that Mu Chun and Xiao Xiao had obtained from the 9 mansions. At the same time, a ray of light shot out from the bodies of the other people who had obtained the residence tokens. Whoosh! Whoosh! A pillar of light shot up and gathered in the sky above the heavenly river. They blended together and gradually formed a huge rune. Everyone's eyes revealed a hint of joy when they saw this. Because the sky river was sealed, if one wanted to enter, they would need to gather the tokens of the 9 palaces. Only then would the seal be opened. Now was the right time. As the runes converged, a mysterious power descended, projecting onto the seal outside the heavenly river. The seal trembled, and the spiritual energy in the world surged. The seal that no one could take a single step forward was instantly torn open, revealing a crack. Before anyone could react, a boundless spiritual energy had already enveloped them. Rustle. The world tree in Fong Qingshan's mind swayed, as if it was reminding him to enter. putting aside the fact that this heavenly lake could allow one to be reborn from the inside out, allowing one to break through bottlenecks. Just the surging spiritual energy alone was enough to make this trip worthwhile. Naturally, since others couldn't bring the spiritual energy away, they placed more importance on the baptism. But Fang Qingshan wasn't the same. He had the world tree, which could endlessly devour and store spiritual energy. So the baptism was important to him. So he couldn't miss out on the spiritual energy. Let's go. In the next instant, everyone flew out at the same time and charged towards a crack on the seal. The heavenly lake was right before them, so no one was willing to be half a step behind. Ever since the ancient Haven Palace was destroyed, this was the first time the heavenly lake had opened. As soon as he stepped inside, Fang Qingshan felt an ancient aura wash over him. As the mist lingered, it formed into an ancient scene that looked like a disciple of the ancient Haven Palace coming to the heavenly lake for the baptism. Let's go. Let's go down. Fortunately, everyone swiftly recovered from the shock, and Fang Qingshan took out his golden dragon disciple plaque. He knew that the water of the heavenly lake was formed from spiritual energy. Although it couldn't be compared to the profound essence-heavy water, every single drop of the water was still as heavy as 1,000 caddies. Most importantly, the spiritual energy here was too abundant to the point that it couldn't be replenished. If they entered the heavenly lake without any defenses, the spiritual energy would flow in reverse, and even an Earth sovereign would die if they weren't careful. The only way was through his disciple plaque. The golden dragon plaque in Fang Qingshan's hand fell into the heavenly lake and turned into a boat. Stepping onto it, it was protected by a golden luster, allowing him to travel freely. Now, let's split up and search for our own opportunities, Fang Qingshan said. According to the rules of the heavenly lake, if he wanted to obtain the baptism, then he would have to gather the spirits of the heavenly lake. Only with sufficient spirits of the heavenly lake could he obtain a perfect baptism and evolve. All right, everyone nodded their heads in unison. If they were to gather together, the more people there were, the bigger the target. Even if they found something, there wouldn't be enough, so they might as well search on their own. To undergo the baptism, Fang Qingshan's objective was naturally to obtain a perfect baptism. If he wanted to obtain a perfect baptism, then he would have to find at least 100 spirits of the heavenly lake. Even though he only needed 100 of them, the heavenly river was vast, and the spirits of the heavenly river were treasures formed from the water of the heavenly river. They were extremely rare, and they were scattered all over the place. It was no easy feat to gather 100 of them. If it was someone else, they would naturally search for them one by one. However, Fang Qingshan had shortcut. The Tree of World was his clone. He could use the roots of the Tree of World to bind the spirits of the heavenly lake. If he stood where he was, the spirits of the heavenly lake from all directions would enter his pocket like swallows flying into the forest. If a tree was taller than the forest, it would be destroyed by the wind. If it was piled higher than the shore, it would be swept away by the current. Regardless of whether he wanted to devour 10 to 20% of the heavenly lake, or if he didn't have to search for the spirits of the heavenly lake, it would definitely cause a huge uproar once people found out about it. Therefore, before doing these two things, Fang Qingshan first had to choose a secluded place. However, although the heavenly lake was huge, in order to search for the spirits of the heavenly lake, the people who entered would not let go of any place. Therefore, the only place that could be considered secluded was the depths of the heavenly lake. Thinking about how a drop of water from the heavenly lake weighed 1,000 caddies, how great the pressure in the depths of the heavenly lake would be. If the disciples' levels were not high enough or they did not have powerful treasures, it would be wishful thinking for them to enter the depths. Chapter 2:13. Fang Qingshan chose a corner with fewer people and gently tapped his foot on the boat that was transformed from a golden dragon disciple. The small boat seemed to have turned into a submarine, sinking rapidly. In the beginning, although there was a great pressure in the river, the boat was as still as a mountain under the protection of the golden light. No matter how the terrifying heavenly river's water slammed against it, it couldn't shake the boat in the slightest. But as the river gradually deepened, the pressure also increased. It could be said that there was a change with every breath, and the pressure was different with every layer of water. When they reached a certain depth, even the golden dragon token seemed to be unable to bear the pressure, and the golden light that enveloped it dimmed. But this wasn't the worst part. The most dangerous thing was that the heavenly river wasn't calm, and there would be undercurrents surging from time to time. These undercurrents were even more terrifying than the waves above the heavenly river. Although they didn't break through the golden light of the token, the light dimmed and rippled. It was clear that this was the limit of what the golden dragon token could achieve at this point. If they wanted to go deeper or even reach the bottom of the heavenly river, they would probably need higher authority, such as proof of identity as the Lord of the Nine Prefectures. If it was anyone else, they would probably have to stay in this realm, even if they didn't want to. But Feng Qingshan was different. Not only did he have the golden dragon token, but he also had all sorts of treasures. With a thought, the five-cloud peach blossom miasma on his body flashed brilliantly, and many peach blossoms bloomed on his golden dragon disciple token. Buzz! In an instant, the already unstable barrier was restored to its original state. This method could be used on others as well. But firstly, defensive treasures like the peach blossom miasma weren't commonly seen. Secondly, activating the treasure itself was a form of consumption. It wasn't a problem for Feng Qingshan because the quality of his sequential five elements qi was very high, allowing him to convert spiritual energy quickly. Coupled with the massive devouring from the world tree, he didn't have to worry about not being able to make ends meet. Others naturally didn't have such good innate conditions. Furthermore, it wouldn't do them any good if they went too deep. After all, their only goal in entering the heavenly river was to search for the spirit of the heavenly river and accept the baptism. Although they might encounter more spirits of the heavenly river the deeper they went, the greater the pressure they would have to bear. At that time, they wouldn't even have time to deal with the pressure. So how would they have the energy to search for the spirits of the heavenly river? After descending a certain distance, Feng Qingshan also stopped. He could continue descending, but there was no need for him to do so. The reason why he had come to the depths of the heavenly river was to find a secluded place that no one else could come to. Moreover, he had the Tree of World with him. He could go deep into the heavenly river even if he stood outside. Why would he waste time and effort to enter the riverbed? Whoosh! In the depths of the heavenly river, there was a small boat drifting along with the waves. It was surrounded by golden light and filled with colorful petals. A man was quietly sitting on the small boat, and above his head was a small tree. Its leaves were like cymbals, and as they swayed back and forth, there seemed to be heavenly sounds ringing out. The surrounding river water that was as viscous as crystal liquid was flowing slowly towards the small boat. To be more precise, it was being swallowed by the small tree above the figure's head. At the same time, there were tree roots that appeared and disappeared mysteriously under the heavenly river. They were like the black and white impermanences 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 black and white impermanence. Since it was called the spirit of the heavenly river, it naturally had its own spirituality and knew how to seek benefits and avoid harm. However, they had met their nemesis today. With their little spirituality and power, how could they be compared to the world tree? After all, the world tree could even steal celestial qi. If someone were to see it, they would be surprised to find that a whirlpool was flowing with the waves, and it was gradually growing larger. At the bottom of the heavenly river, the spirits of the heavenly river were tied up and fell into Feng Qingshan's hands. In just a short while the others were still searching for the spirits of the heavenly river, Feng Qingshan had already collected the 100 spirits of the heavenly river required for the baptism. Although he had completed the collection, Feng Qingshan did not stop. Through the world tree's perspective, he had arrived at the bottom of the heavenly river and saw a scene that was as bright as the starry sky. The riverbed was dotted with stars, and there were countless spirits of the heavenly river lying on it. These things were the condensation of the spiritual power of the heavenly river. Even if they were not used for the baptism, they were extremely good for cultivation. In terms of quality, they were probably a level higher than nascent soul pills. In this regard, Fang Qingshan did not pay much attention to it. He just let the world tree continue to collect the spirits of the heavenly river and swallow the water of the heavenly river. Meanwhile, he sat cross-legged on the boat and began to cultivate. It was not the cultivation of spiritual power and spiritual qi. After all, he had already reached the peak of the golden core realm. If not for the all-heaven chessboard, he would have triggered the wind and fire tribulation back in the West City. What he was doing now was to temper his physical body and divine abilities. Deep in the heavenly river, the pressure was so great that it was simply a natural treasure land for tempering one's physical body and divine abilities. Fang Qingshan opened up a small gap in the five-cloud peach flower miasma, isolating the spiritual power and letting in the pressure of the heavenly river. For a moment, Fang Qingshan's body trembled slightly. He could feel his muscles, bones, and even blood gradually becoming hot, as if they were being tempered in a furnace. As for the divine abilities, they were being compressed bit by bit and constantly condensed. Although the golden core was gradually becoming smaller, the brilliance became even more dazzling. After getting used to the pressure, Fang Qingshan opened up a bigger gap and let more pressure pour in. At the same time, streams of celestial qi also continuously flowed into his body. The pressure was destroying and tempering, while the celestial qi was repairing and strengthening. Through this destruction and repair, Fang Qingshan's physical body, divine abilities, and golden core were perfectly tempered. Time gradually passed. Because Fang Qingshan was in the depths of the heavenly lake, there wasn't anyone around, so it was naturally quiet. But at a certain moment, an undercurrent suddenly surged. Fang Qingshan opened his eyes, and two golden beams shot out as he raised his head to look at the heavenly lake. He could sense a boundless, killing aura. Could it be Mu Chun? Fang Qingshan recalled that Mu Chun had a great divine ability, the self-sacrificial demonic punch, that contained a powerful killing power. Furthermore, he had used it to kill Xiaoyu in the heavenly lake. Thinking about it, Fang Qingshan stopped his cultivation. Since he had already gathered a mountain of spirits of the heavenly lake and the water of the heavenly lake had formed a river in the world tree space, it was time for him to receive his baptism. Not to mention that he still wanted to exchange something from Mu Chen's group. Chapter 214. What a great killing technique. When Fang Qingshan floated up, he saw Mu Chun going berserk. His eyes had turned red with an ominous aura around him. There weren't any emotions on his face, since he only had a single target, Xiaoyu. He threw out a punch, accompanied by a strong sense of desperation, as if he was performing a life-risking move like the heavens and earth or the sky demon disintegration. There were traces of black aura shrouding his fist. It was the destructive demonic aura. Fang Qingshan closed his eyes as he quietly watched. He knew that the outcome of this battle had already been determined. Nothing mattered apart from death. When someone wasn't afraid of death, how powerful would that be? Mu Chun had disregarded his own life and death, which was in line with the true intent of the self-sacrificial demonic punch. Thus, the might of this divine ability was completely unleashed. The Emperor's celestial body couldn't withstand it, so it was destroyed. Even a mountain river's ruler's seal couldn't withstand it, so the barrier shattered. Begging and threats were useless. In the end, Mu Chun ended Xiaoyu's life with an indifferent expression. At this moment, the spectators in the distance were all dumbfounded. Their eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. They never expected that Mu Chun would really dare to kill Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu was the crown prince of the Xia Empire, the successor of the Xia Emperor. Everyone couldn't help gulping down a mouthful of saliva. However, they had no idea that if they didn't kill the snake, they would be harmed instead. With Xiaoyu's ruthless character, even if Mu Chun let him go, he wouldn't appreciate it. On the contrary, he might as well end his life. Congratulations to Brother Mu for killing a great enemy. Seeing Mu Chun collecting his spoils of war, Fong Qingshan could not help activating his golden dragon plaque as he walked over with a smile. So it's Brother Fong. Mu Chun was a little surprised to see Fong Qingshan. He had executed the self-sacrificial demonic punch earlier, so he did not notice Fong Qingshan's arrival. I did kill a great enemy, but I've provoked an even more powerful enemy. Mu Chun bitterly smiled. In time to come, Brother Fong Qingshan won't care about the mere Great Xia dynasty. Fong Qingshan chuckled. You've also said that it requires time. Mu Chun shook his head as he asked, how many spirits of the heavenly lake has Brother Fong collected? 100. Fong Qingshan said mockingly. Oh, 100? At first, Mu Chun did not react. However, when the words reached his mouth, he cried out in surprise. He stared at Fong Qingshan as if he was looking at an idiot. He had an expression that said, I'm not well educated, so don't lie to me. You don't believe me? Fong Qingshan laughed. I don't believe you. Mu Chun nodded with certainty. His speed was already fast enough, and he could even set up a raise. But he only managed to collect 13 heavenly lake crystals, and when he obtained Xia Yu's spoils of war, he only managed to collect 8. However, Fong Qingshan actually said that he had already collected 100 of them. Wasn't this a cosmic joke? Huh? Fong Qingshan gently laughed as he continued. Why don't we make a bet? What bet? Mu Chun asked with his brows twitched. If I manage to collect 100, then I'll win. If not, then I'll lose. What do you think? Fong Qingshan said unhurriedly. Since it's a bet, then there will naturally be something at stake. I wonder what happens if I win or lose. Mu Chun doubtfully looked at Fong Qingshan. If I win, then I want Xia Yu's Emperor Celestial Body's cultivation technique. A bewitching smile hung on the corner of Fong Qingshan's lips as he continued. If I lose, then I'll use the spatial divine ability that I've previously executed as collateral. What do you think? You're serious? Mu Chun initially thought that Fong Qingshan was only joking, but at this moment, it looked like victory was within his grasp. Thus, he couldn't help feeling a trace of hesitation in his heart. Could it be that he has already collected 100? Impossible. That's absolutely impossible. Mu Chun shook his head and tossed this thought to the back of his head. All right, I'll agree to it. He had cultivated the immortal celestial body, so the Emperor's celestial body was useless in his hands. If he could exchange it for the spatial divine ability in Fong Qingshan's hands, then it would be great. I've been waiting for you to say that. Fong Qingshan waved his hand, and a dazzling luster flickered before his eyes with the spirits of the heavenly lake shining like stars. Seeing this scene, Mu Chun was instantly dumbfounded, completely unable to believe that this was the truth. Rubbing his eyes, he stared dumbfoundedly at Fong Qingshan. Brother Fong, you're not being fair. After a long time, Mu Chun bitterly smiled as he pointed at Fong Qingshan and shook his head. I've already said that I've already gathered them, but you didn't believe me. Fong Qingshan shrugged his shoulders with a helpless expression. Oh you. Seeing the gloating look in Fong Qingshan's eyes, Mu Chun couldn't help shaking his head. Since he lost the bet, he took out the cultivation technique of the Emperor's celestial body from Xia Yu's stored treasure and handed it over to Fong Qingshan. Good. Seeing that the Emperor's celestial body was in his hands, Fong Qingshan couldn't help exclaiming in his heart. He was about to reach the heavenly earth celestial body realm, so he wanted to learn from those heavenly earth celestial bodies. The Emperor's celestial body was ranked 45th on the Sovereign Celestial Body ranking, so it might not even exist in the ancient Haven Palace's hidden scripture pavilion. Right, Brother Fong. How did you gather so many spirits of the heavenly lakes so quickly? Mu Chun curiously asked. The spirits of the heavenly lake possessed spirituality, so they weren't easy to capture. Furthermore, they were scattered, so it was practically impossible to gather so many at once. If it's not convenient, then don't force yourself. Thereafter, Mu Chun recalled that this might be related to Fong Qingshan's secrets, so he immediately added, What's not convenient about it? Fong Qingshan shook his head as he continued. I've gone deeper and the spirits of the heavenly lake are incomparable to the ones above. Furthermore, I have my own method of capturing them. Even deeper underwater? So that's the case. Muchin instantly understood. Indeed, the deeper they went, the denser the spiritual energy in the river would be, and it would be easier to gather the spirits of the heavenly lake. However, this method wasn't something that just anyone could learn from. As for Fang Qingshan's vague words about his capturing method, Mu Chun did not continue asking about it. MHM? Something's not right. Suddenly, Mu Chun recalled that there was something wrong with the spirits of the heavenly lake that Fang Qingshan had taken out. At first, he was shocked by how quickly Fang Qingshan had collected 100 of them. Now that he came back to his senses and thought about it, he realized that one of the 100 seemed to be very unusual. Brother Fang, one of the spirits of the heavenly lake seems to be... Mu Chun asked with his brows knitted. You can tell. Fang Qingshan did it on purpose. If he wanted the perfect baptism, he would have to gather 100 spirits of the heavenly lake. However, the last spirit of the heavenly lake wasn't that easy to gather. But even if he didn't say it, Mu Chun would realize it in the end, so he might as well reveal it now. Chapter 215. If you want to receive the perfect baptism, you will have to find 100 spirits of the heavenly lake. Looking at Mu Chin's puzzled gaze, Fang Qingshan explained, but in ancient times, there were so many talented disciples in the ancient Haven Palace, but there weren't many that could receive the perfect baptism. Do you know why? Could it be the spirit of the heavenly lake? Mu Chun recalled the spirit of the heavenly lake that Fang Qingshan had taken out, which was different from the rest. Correct. Fang Qingshan nodded. It's not difficult to collect 100 spirits of the heavenly lake. The difficult part is that I can't use an ordinary spirit of the heavenly lake for the last spirit of the heavenly lake. Otherwise, I won't be able to trigger the perfect baptism. Why is that? Mu Chun knitted his brows. I'm not too sure about the details. Fang Qingshan shook his head and waved his hand. He took out the spirit of the heavenly lake and replaced it with an ordinary one before placing it in the golden dragon plaque. Take a look. The spirits of the heavenly lake were a little miraculous. Generally speaking, they could only be stored in a disciple's plaque. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan's world tree was even more profound. Otherwise, he would only be able to gather a single spiritual energy river. Although Mu Chun had no idea what Fang Qingshan was trying to do, he still focused on Fang Qingshan's actions. Boom! What was surprising was that the spirit of the heavenly river, which was supposed to be able to fuse with the golden dragon token smoothly, seemed to have become two extremes of yin and yang. The moment it came into contact with the golden dragon token, it bounced back with a bang. This is... Mu Chun was stunned. May I ask, Brother Fang, how can I gather those spirits of the heavenly lake? Mu Chun recovered from the shock and solemnly asked with his fists cupped towards Fang Qingshan. It's difficult and easy at the same time. Fang Qingshan smiled as he continued. It's not worth mentioning, but if you don't understand the logic behind it, you won't be able to comprehend it. Fang Qingshan did not beat around the bush and continued. The 100th spirit of the heavenly lake is the result of the previous 99 spirits devouring each other. What? Hearing Fang Qingshan's words, Mu Chun was briefly stunned before he took out all the spirits of the heavenly lake with a wave of his hand. Waving his hand, spiritual energy enveloped them. Then, he stared at the spirits of the heavenly river, observing the slightest changes between them. Naturally, he didn't gain anything in the beginning. However, Mu Chun wasn't discouraged. He knew that Fang Qingshan wouldn't lie to him about this matter. That's because there was no need for it, and it would be easily exposed. After persisting for an incense's time, Mu Chun finally realized that when the spirits of the heavenly lake clashed together, some of the spirits would turn a little brighter, while some would turn a little dimmer. So, it really is devouring? A sliver of joy flashed across Mu Chun's eyes as he cupped his hands towards Fang Qingshan. Thank you for your guidance, Brother Fang. In the ancient times, there were so many disciples of the ancient Haven Palace, but only a few of them could receive the perfect baptism. The reason for this was because they cherished it. But right now, Fong Qingshan did not hide anything from him. So how could Mu Chun not feel grateful? At the same time, Mu Chun felt apologetic in his heart. After all, when he first saw Fong Qingshan, he had thought that the latter was his opponent and that they would definitely fight in the future. However, he had no idea that even if Fong Qingshan didn't tell him, he would still comprehend it in the end. It was just a matter of time. Brother Mu is being too serious. The corner of Fong Qingshan's lips rose, but it instantly disappeared as he shook his head. Even if I didn't remind you, you would still comprehend it in the end. Although Fong Qingshan spoke casually, Mu Chun knew that he might be talented, but he might not be able to compare to the disciples of the ancient Haven Palace. Since they couldn't comprehend it, it was still unknown if he could. Facing this, Mu Chun did not speak any further and hid his gratitude for Fong Qingshan in his heart. Since Brother Fong has finished gathering them, then go up and receive the baptism. I still have to gather the spirits of the heavenly lake, so I won't be accompanying you. Mu Chun bade farewell to Fong Qingshan. No need. I have gathered many spirits of the heavenly lake, and I can't bring them out, so I'll give them to you. Fong Qingshan waved his hand. How many more do you need? This isn't good, right? Mu Chun had just received Fong Qingshan's reminder on how to obtain the 100th spirit of the heavenly lake, so he immediately shook his head. If you feel apologetic, then give me a sovereign celestial body that you have no use for, Fong Qingshan casually said after seeing Mu Chun's refusal. Thanks, Brother Fong. If you need my help in the future, feel free to let me know. After a brief hesitation, Mu Chun did not reject it. Just as Fong Qingshan had said, he couldn't bring the spirits of the heavenly lake out, so it would be a waste if he didn't use them. Furthermore, the spirits of the heavenly lake weren't easy to capture, and he had no idea if he could gather 99 of them within the time limit. Compared to favors, Mu Chun felt that completing the perfect baptism was more important. That's more like it. A smile appeared on Fong Qingshan's face as he filled up Mu Chun's spirits of the heavenly lake. With Fong Qingshan's guidance, Mu Chun swiftly fused the 99 spirits of the heavenly lake into one. If the previous spirits of the heavenly lake were like stars, then the 100th spirit of the heavenly lake was like a sun that shone brightly. Rumble. When Mu Chun fused with the 100th spirit of the heavenly lake suddenly trembled and a peculiar fluctuation appeared on the heavenly lake. Looks like the baptism of the heavenly lake has started. Let's go up. Fong Qingshan could sense that someone was undergoing the baptism of the heavenly lake, so he said to Mu Chun, "All right." Regarding this, Mu Chun naturally did not have any objections. However, halfway through the journey, Mu Chun suddenly hesitated to speak to Fong Qingshan. What's wrong? Fong Qingshan's brows twitched as he curiously asked, Does Brother Fong have any extra spirits of the heavenly lake? Can I tell Lin Jing and the rest about the perfect baptism? Mu Chun asked in embarrassment. This method was discovered by Fong Qingshan, so it was fine if he told it to him out of goodwill. But now, Mu Chun's face couldn't help turning red as he wanted to tell it to others. What's the point? Since I've told you about it, then I have no intention of keeping it a secret. Fong Qingshan initially thought that it was something serious, but it turned out that Mu Chun did not forget about his companions after obtaining the benefits. As long as you don't forget about my benefits. Even if Mu Chun didn't say it, Fong Qingshan would have told him about it himself. Firstly, it would increase his favorable impression, and secondly, it could be exchanged for divine abilities. That's naturally impossible. Mu Chun couldn't help breathing a sigh of relief as he replied with a smile. The two of them exchanged a look and no longer spoke before they soared into the sky and flew out of the heavenly lake. Chapter 2:16. Plop. When Fong Qingshan and Mu Chun came out of the heavenly lake with their disciple tokens, they saw the commotion on the heavenly lake. 100 barges vying, 1,000 sails competing. Thousands of sovereigns stood on their disciple tokens with countless spirits of the heavenly lake soaring into the sky. At this moment, The heavenly lake was like the Milky Way in the 9 heavens with the starry sky above it. More and more spirits of the heavenly lake gathered above their heads and fused together, forming into a pillar of light that connected the sky and suppressed the heavenly lake. Those sovereigns stood in the pillar of light and were enveloped by it. Rustle. In the next moment, the spiritual energy of the heavenly lake was guided and gathered above their respective pillars. Like a stream, like a river, like a river. Because the spirits of the heavenly lake were different, the amount of spiritual energy that gathered on their respective pillars was also different. Those with fewer spirits of the heavenly lake would naturally gather less spiritual energy and could only receive the elementary baptism. Those with more spirits of the heavenly lake would naturally gather more spiritual energy, but they could only receive the greater baptism at best. There wasn't anyone that could receive the perfect baptism. In an instant, heavy rain poured down, and the spiritual energy within the pillar of light turned into raindrops that fell towards them. Those raindrops weren't ordinary raindrops. They were emerald in color and seemed to contain powerful vitality and spiritual energy. Every single drop was comparable to 10,000 drops of sovereign spiritual liquid. Joy, great joy. At this moment, practically everyone had joy on their faces. That's because when the raindrops fell on their sovereign celestial bodies, they didn't even need to refine them. It was as if they had cultivated it themselves and had perfectly fused with it. Not only did they undergo a complete transformation, but their cultivation, sovereign celestial bodies, and divine abilities had also undergone a complete transformation. Their entire bodies were emitting a peaceful glow. What a fellow, truly worthy of the heavenly lake's baptism. At the sight of this scene, Mu Chun and Fong Qingshan exclaimed at the same time. After briefly looking at the heavenly lake's baptism, Fong Qingshan and Mu Chun no longer paid any attention to it and looked around for the whereabouts of Ling Jing's group of 3. Fortunately, they weren't golden dragons, but disciples of the golden Jiao dragon. Thus, their tokens were extremely eye-catching and were swiftly discovered by Fong Qingshan and Mu Chun. Ling Jing's group of 3 naturally noticed Fong Qingshan's group as well. However, they only waved their hands and didn't seem to have any intention of coming over. After all, if they were too close, they might interfere with each other. However, Mu Chun and Luo Yinyang paid no attention to their waving as they beckoned them over. Ling Jing and the other 2 exchanged doubtful glances before flying over without any hesitation. "What's the matter?" Ling Jing asked directly. "You guys should have accepted the greater baptism, right?" Mu Chun and Fong Qingshan exchanged glances and asked. "Yeah, is there something wrong?" Ling Jing and the other 2 grew even more puzzled. "There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that Brother Fong has found the perfect baptism, so he called you guys over." Mu Chun smiled. "What? You found out?" At this moment, the 3 of them seemed to be on the verge of screaming out loud as they stared at Fong Qingshan and his companion in shock. It was Brother Fong who discovered it. Mu Chun did not dare to claim credit for himself and directly threw out Fong Qingshan. The 100 spirit of the heavenly lake requires the 99 spirits of the heavenly lake to fuse together. When Fong Qingshan saw Ling Jing and the other 2 looking at him, he revealed the method without any hesitation. The 3 of them immediately took out their spirits of the heavenly lake and wanted to fuse them together. "You guys!" Fong Qingshan shook his head and waved his hand, releasing the pentacloud peach flower miasma that enveloped them. Although Fong Qingshan wasn't too bothered about this method, he also didn't want to announce it to the world. When Ling Jing and the other 2 saw this, their faces couldn't help turning red. The actions of Fong Qingshan's group were naturally seen by those in the surroundings. However, everyone was busy accepting the baptism, so no one paid any attention to it. Buzz. While everyone was rejoicing in the heavenly lake's baptism, the entire heavenly lake suddenly trembled. Thereafter, an endless luster spread out like the sun rising from the east. Countless gazes were instantly directed at Fong Qingshan's party, and under the countless bewildered gazes, A sphere of light that was roughly 100 feet in size rose above Fong Qingshan's party of 5, and everyone could sense the aura of the spirit of the heavenly lake. Perfect baptism. At this moment, those words rose in everyone's hearts. Although there was only one spirit of the heavenly lake, the fluctuation contained in it was so powerful that it made their scalps go numb. Even a greater baptism couldn't compare to it. Aside from shock, there was also envy and jealousy, especially Su Qingyin, Garuda, and the rest, who had a grudge with Fong Qingshan's group. Their faces turned dark as they looked at Fong Qingshan's group. At this moment, Fong Qingshan's group of 5 couldn't be bothered with what others were thinking. The 5 of them split up and tossed out their spirits at the same time. Buzz! In the next moment, an endless luster swept out in every direction. If the other spirits of the heavenly lake were pillars of light, then those of Fong Qingshan's group were the source of light. The luster practically couldn't be seen. It was so much so that it covered the entire sky of the heavenly lake. Thereafter, a massive amount of spiritual energy gathered over. It was like a flood that had opened the floodgates. Everyone's baptism was like a stream, a river, and a river. At this moment, the spiritual energy of Fong Qingshan's group of 5 had gathered like an ocean. It was fine if it was just the difference in quantity, but the quality was even more inferior. Everyone's spiritual energy had turned into rain, while Fong Qingshan's group of 5 had turned into crystals. There was also an auspicious luster in the surroundings, with dragons and phoenixes showing their prowess. Mu Chun and the rest had revealed their sovereign immortal bodies as they waited for the baptism to start. On the other hand, Fong Qingshan had brought out the pentapeach flower miasma and enveloped him, not allowing anyone to see it. In the next moment, spiritual energy roared and turned into a dragon that descended towards the 5 of them. The perfect baptism had officially started. Before that, Fong Qingshan had brought out his golden core and released the suppression of the wind and fire tribulation. Rumble. Without Fong Qingshan's suppression, the wind and fire tribulation had completely erupted. Woo! Woo! An endless, strange wind blew out from the depths of the gold core, and a strange, devilish flame burst out of the gold core and wrapped around his fleshly body. The wind was the black demonic dragon wind, while the flames were the red lotus karmic flames. The wind and fire tribulation wasn't a tribulation of the heavens and earth, but a tribulation that was released from his golden core. But even so, the more karma he had, the more powerful the tribulation would be, and the more difficult it would be to get through it. If it wasn't for Fong Qingshan using the pentapeach flower miasma to conceal himself, everyone in the surroundings would probably be implicated when the tribulation erupted. But even so, those that were nearby still felt their hearts palpitating and subconsciously distanced themselves from Fong Qingshan. Chapter 217. What's going on? Did something happen to his perfect baptism? What's going on inside? When Fong Qingshan was undergoing the perfect baptism, the peach blossom miasma that enveloped the space around him was already very eye-catching. Fortunately, the spiritual power of the heavenly river was flowing in, and the sound suppressed the commotion of the catastrophe of wind and fire. Even so, those who were closer still felt drowsy and felt like a disaster was about to befall them. Therefore, in an instant, the area around Fong Qingshan was automatically cleared. This was actually just the aftermath of the catastrophe of wind and fire. The wind of the catastrophe of wind and fire was the black nightmare dragon wind. It meant that cultivators would unknowingly turn to ashes in their dreams when they were blown by the wind, and their Tao would disappear. Therefore, those who were closer would feel drowsy when they heard the wind. As for the hellfire of the red lotus, it was the most terrifying spiritual fire in the world. Even those who were renowned would avoid it. The more negative karma one had, the more powerful the hellfire of the red lotus would be. As long as the negative karma was not eliminated, the fire would not be extinguished. Moreover, most importantly, unless one was a sage who was indestructible and untainted by all dharma, as long as one was alive, one would have negative karma. In order to restrain the fire, apart from merit, only a treasure like the legendary hellfire of the Red Lotus could be used. Therefore, everyone felt their hearts palpitate. Fortunately, Fong Qingshan had used the five-cloud peach blossom miasma to isolate it. Fortunately, the great tribulation of wind and fire was directed at Fong Qingshan. Otherwise, once the shockwave spread, very few people would be able to survive the karmic fire. At that moment, within the peach blossom miasma, the golden core above Fong Qingshan's head was emitting wind and fire. Lotuses bloomed all around him, looking extremely beautiful. It was as if he was standing in a sea of lotuses. However, these lotuses shone with a bewitching red light. They were the size of water jars, and every single one of them contained an extremely terrifying power. Although the karmic fire of the Red Lotus was also a type of fire, it was clearly an existence that surpassed the five elements. Although Fong Qingshan was rather proficient in the five elements, he was helpless against the karmic fire of the Red Lotus. He could only watch as it wrapped around his body. Fong Qingshan's physical body was extremely strong to begin with, and he had even used the pressure of the heavenly river to temper it. However, under the burning of the karmic fire, his body began to wither visibly. It was as if all his flesh, blood, essence, and bone marrow were being burned dry. At the same time, black whirlwinds that looked like ancient poisonous dragons opened their ferocious mouths and pierced towards Fong Qingshan's forehead with their sharp, scaly claws. The cries of ghosts and howls of wolves were thousands of times stronger than the astral winds of the nine heavens. Although it was turbulent, it made one unable to muster any thoughts of resistance. Instead, one would feel as if they could just sleep and be free. The wind fueled the fire, and the fire borrowed the might of the wind. The Black Nightmare Dragon Wind and the Red Lotus Hellfire worked together, forming a pillar of fire with Fong Qingshan at the center. The wind and fire howled furiously. It was like the pillar of fire that Yun Zhongzi had used to kill Grand Tutor when in the end. Most importantly, the tribulation of wind and fire did not come from the heavens and earth, but from his own golden core. It burst forth continuously, becoming more and more violent and powerful. Apart from resisting it head-on, even magic treasures were useless and could not block it. Therefore, Fong Qingshan did not use the five Hell Emperor's Cauldron and the five-cloud peach blossom miasma to block it. Tribulation, tribulation, tribulation. You have committed grave sins. You cannot escape this tribulation. Give up. Stop struggling. Everything is predestined. As the sound of the wind and fire burned, faint sighs formed in Fong Qingshan's ears. These sounds could not be blocked like the wind and fire, reaching directly into his heart and soul. Fortunately, Fong Qingshan had the world tree and the all-heaven chessboard in his sea of consciousness. He also cultivated the little destiny technique, so the effects of the Black Nightmare Dragon Wind were greatly reduced. It was almost useless against him. Although they could not block the attack of the Black Nightmare Dragon Wind, they could directly wake Fong Qingshan up when he was unconscious. The little destiny technique was the most profound. The Black Nightmare Dragon Wind hinted that he could not escape this tribulation. It was simply a joke. However, the Black Nightmare Dragon Wind was easy to deal with, but the Red Lotus Hellfire was difficult to resist. In less than an hour, Fong Qingshan, who was standing in the center of the tribulation of wind and fire, seemed to have reached his twilight years. His body withered, and he was on his last breath. He was burned to the point where only skin was left. He looked like a person who was about to die, a living skeleton covered with a layer of human skin. Of course, the hellfire did not just burn his body. Although it came from his golden core, it could not avoid being burned. The golden core was supposed to be a symbol of sturdiness. However, under the burning of the hellfire, it began to slowly soften and melt bit by bit. It was burned into a flowing golden liquid. The mystiques inside, including the five elements extermination god needle, the pure yang sword art, the heaven and earth furnace, the yin yang eye, and so on, slowly began to disintegrate. They could not withstand the power of the tribulation of wind and fire. Fang Qingshan had too many golden core mystiques. 9 returned to 1. This was almost the limit. In particular, every mystique of his was at the level of a great mystique or above. He had so many that the heavens and earth had to blow a conch and beat a drum for him. A towering building was built from the ground. The deeper one's foundation, the more promising one's future would be. However, at the same time, one would need to undergo more rigorous tests. After all, in order to wear the crown, one must first bear the burden. Therefore, his great tribulation of wind and fire was 10 times, or even dozens of times, that of others. The other point was the negative karma. Although Fang Qingshan had not done anything infuriating, he had unified the 3 kingdoms and was stained with a lot of negative karma. Moreover, he had received the worship of the 3 kingdoms, the Sky Dragon, and billions of citizens. While he had received the power of providence, he had also received the poisonous negative karma of incense. If it had been anyone else, they would have been burned to ashes by the hellfire. However, Fang Qingshan had long understood the power of the great tribulation of wind and fire. Because of the all-heaven chessboard and the minor destiny art, the Black Nightmare Tornado was no longer of much use to him. The only problem now was the Red Lotus Hellfire. Although the all-heaven chessboard was a treasure of providence, it clearly could not completely extinguish the hellfire. In order to extinguish the hellfire, apart from merit and the Red Lotus of Hellfire, he had to completely burn his negative karma. Without firewood, the hellfire would naturally be extinguished. Fang Qingshan did not have merit. The Red Lotus of Hellfire was a legendary treasure. He did not have it either. Therefore, the only way to survive the great tribulation of wind and fire was to forcefully endure it like everyone else. Once all the negative karma was burned, the sky would naturally clear after the storm. Fortunately, he was different from the others. He was currently undergoing a perfect baptism. Spiritual power was surging toward him. In addition, he was above the heavenly river, so the Tree of World could continuously devour spiritual power as backup. Therefore, the only thing Fang Qingshan had to do now was to endure and wait. As long as he endured the pain of the hellfire, the sky would be clear when the negative karma dissipated. Chapter 218. Inside the 5-cloud peach blossom miasma, Fang Qingshan looked extremely miserable. His skin, muscles, and organs had all been burnt to ashes by the karmic fire. Now, all that was left was a skeleton. Even the bones were charred black and looked like they could collapse at any time. At that moment, Fang Qingshan took out the Nirvana elixir that he had bought at a high price from Hongjun Tiandao Pavilion and swallowed it. The Nirvana elixir was a miraculous elixir that could help a cultivator break through to the secret realm of longevity. What was Nirvana? Nirvana meant rebirth from the ashes. It meant that there could be no construction without destruction. Wasn't Fang Qingshan's current situation just right for this situation? Therefore, the moment he took the Nirvana elixir, there was an immediate change. Clang, clang. With a phoenix cry, the Nirvana elixir's medicinal power exploded and released a type of flame. There was a phoenix dancing in it, and it cried out in harmony. A huge amount of life force was injected into Fang Qingshan's body, which was on the verge of death. Instantly, the charred substance on Fang Qingshan's bones peeled off bit by bit. Blood and flesh started to spread, as if his flesh was about to be reborn. Phoenixes were immortal and could be reborn from the ashes. This was the Nirvana sacred fire of the Phoenix clan. It was no weaker than the karmic fire of the Red Lotus and was filled with endless vitality. Of course, this was just a trace of the Nirvana sacred fire contained in the Nirvana elixir. It couldn't compare to the Nirvana sacred fire of the Phoenix. But these wisps of sacred flames were a seed, a fuse, because at that moment, the spiritual power of the perfect baptism was injected. At that moment, Fang Qingshan felt an extremely powerful spiritual power fall from the top of his head. It was as if he was in an ocean of spiritual power. Fang Qingshan's body was like a vent. As soon as the spiritual power touched his body, it swarmed in. Fang Qingshan's body suddenly bulged up like a balloon. The wind and fire had already caused Fang Qingshan to experience thousands of tortures. At this moment, the spiritual power crazily washed over him, making him feel like he had experienced thousands of cuts. Fortunately, as the spiritual power merged with the hellfire, it also turned into firewood, and the seed-like nirvana sacred flame completely bloomed. The flesh extended. Blood, flesh, meridians, internal organs, skin. Under the calcination of the nirvana sacred flame, Fang Qingshan's body regrew. His entire body emitted a trace of warmth like glass. At the same time, his golden core and mystique were reformed as well. His golden core and mystique had been refined by the karmic fire. Now that they were reformed, they were even purer and more perfect. At this moment, the sequent Heaven 5 elemental true Qi was also transforming. The originally crystal-like spiritual power actually solidified and became solid again. It was a gem that was as solid as heaven crystal. The spiritual power became purer and more condensed. As if sensing the changes in Fang Qingshan's body, a stronger wind blew in the golden core, blowing out more hellfire. It seemed like it wanted to completely obliterate Fang Qingshan. With the support of spiritual power, I am immortal. Wind refines my spirit. Fire refines my body. Spirit and body become one. Yin and yang become one. Although the tribulation of wind and fire seemed to be more powerful, at this moment, Fang Qingshan was not afraid at all. Instead, he shouted, and not only did he not care about the calcination of the hellfire, he even let go of the black nightmare dragon wind. 10,000 tribulations on me. My heart does not move. My heart does not move. The tribulations cannot touch me. The wind blew on the essence spirit, and the fire burned the body. However, Fang Qingshan seemed to have the pearl of wisdom in his hands. No matter how the black nightmare dragon swept, circles of wisdom like that of Buddha and Bodhisattva rose on his essence spirit, and he was as still as a mountain. A red lotus and a fire phoenix wrapped Fang Qingshan's body. The red lotus was destroyed, and the fire phoenix repaired. One was destroyed, and the other was erected. It reached a perfect balance. At this moment, Fang Qingshan felt a sense of comfort that he had never felt before. Because he had experienced the tribulation of wind and fire, the impurities in Fang Qingshan's body, as well as the hidden injuries that he had suffered in battle and cultivation, were perfectly and rapidly repaired. His aptitude had been improved, and his cultivation had improved greatly. More importantly, once the hellfire was gone, it was like a dragon soaring in the 4 seas and a phoenix crying in the 9 heavens. There were no shackles at all. Stillness begets calmness, stillness begets wisdom, and wisdom leads to calmness. The red lotus tribulation fire that was the size of a water tank was extinguished, and the black nightmare dragon wind stopped spinning and dispersed one by one. The sound of the fire became softer, and so did the sound of the wind. Seeing that the wind had stopped and the fire was extinguished, Fang Qingshan was about to completely pass the tribulation of wind and fire. But at this moment, Fang Qingshan suddenly had an idea. He wanted to refine the hellfire and the nirvana sacred flame into his 5 elements divine power. Although the karmic fire and the nirvana sacred flame had already surpassed the 5 elemental fire, they were still fire in the end. If they could be refined into the 5 elemental fire, Fang Qingshan's 5 elemental sacred art would definitely be even more powerful, especially the hellfire. Once it was refined into the extermination needle, it would be impossible to guard against. With this thought, Fang Qingshan could no longer suppress it. Everything in the world belongs to the 5 elements. Among the 5 elements, I am the Fire Emperor. Fang Qingshan said softly. He circulated the sequent heaven 5 elements true Qi and took out the 5 elements extermination needle. Although Fang Qingshan's expression was solemn, he did not hesitate at all. Taking advantage of the tribulation and baptism, when the hellfire and the nirvana sacred flame were at their weakest, he waved his hand with a cold look in his eyes. The crystal-like spiritual power turned into a large cauldron. The red lotuses and the fire phoenixes were all surrounded by them. The two powers collided. Chi-Chi. Regardless of whether it was the hellfire or the nirvana sacred flame, they were the spiritual fires at the top of the pyramid. You should be thankful that they did not find trouble with you. You actually want to refine them? Although they were at their weakest, they still exploded with great power in an instant. The sequent heaven five elements true chi that enveloped the two flames was like an ocean that was bathed by the sun. The white clouds rolled and instantly evaporated by half. World tree, bless me. Pour in spiritual power. The spiritual power in Fong Qingshan's body was constantly evaporating. It was no less than when he was going through the tribulation. He quickly mobilized the world tree to absorb the spiritual power of the Milky Way. He fought a long battle of attrition with the two flames. The explosive power of the hellfire and the nirvana sacred flame could not be underestimated. Not only was his spiritual power evaporating, but during the continuous process of fusion, his divine power was also being tested. Even his soul was slowly being eroded. Although the benefits of fusing the two treasured flames were great, the process of fusion was also extremely dangerous. If he was not careful, he could go for wool and come home shorn. Fortunately, Fong Qingshan cultivated the five elements Tao and had a certain resistance to fire. In addition, when he was going through the tribulation, both his body and divine power were stained with the hellfire and the aura of the nirvana sacred flame. This was a great help to him in refining the two sacred flames. Chapter 219. While Fong Qingshan was fusing with the karmic flames and nirvana sacred flames, Mu Chun, Xiao Xiao, Ling Jing, Zhu Yin, Su Qingyin, and Garuda had also completed their baptisms. Some of them made a breakthrough after their baptisms, like Nine Nether. Some of them had a more robust foundation, like Ling Jing and the rest. After all, they were perfected ninth-grade sovereigns to begin with, and it wasn't an easy step to take. As time passed, more and more baptisms were completed. As a result, the vast heavenly river gradually calmed down and became illusory. Evidently, after everyone had completed their baptisms, he had returned to another space to wait for the next one to begin. At this moment, everyone had completed their baptisms, except for Fong Qingshan, who was still in the Pentacloud Peach Flower Miasma, which attracted everyone's attention. The baptism has already ended, so why isn't young Master Fong out yet? Ling Jing asked in a worried tone. Brother Fong might be making a breakthrough. Mu Qing guessed. After all, others would break through their original strength after undergoing the lesser, intermediate, and greater baptisms. Although Fong Qingshan was powerful, his cultivation was the lowest. Furthermore, he had undergone a perfect baptism, so it was natural for him to make a breakthrough. But isn't this breakthrough taking a little too long? Nine Nether knitted her brows. Mu Qin had also made a breakthrough, but he didn't take that much time. Could there be a problem? No. Can't you see that the Pentacloud Peach Flower Miasma isn't moving? Xiao Xiao explained as she pointed at the Pentacloud Peach Flower Miasma. Let's wait. Mu Chun made the final decision. At this moment, everyone that had completed their baptisms had left the heavenly lake, leaving only Mu Chin's group of 4 to wait for Fong Qingshan. At this moment, what was Fong Qingshan doing in the Pentacloud Peach Flower Miasma? At this moment, the karmic flames and nirvana sacred flames had already been refined by him into the greater 5 elements annihilation needle. Because the world tree had devoured the spiritual energy of the heavenly river and continuously provided him with energy, coupled with the hellfire and sacred flames repair, his body was already tainted with the aura of the hellfire and nirvana sacred flame. Therefore, even though the process was a little dangerous, Fong Qingshan still managed to refine the 2 top-notch flames into his essential energy magic power. Originally, after refining the flames, Fong Qingshan was prepared to get up and leave. However, he did not know that the 2 flames were too powerful, causing the 5 elements to lose balance. Good heavens, this was quite a shock. If left unchecked, the 5 elements would become unbalanced, And not only would Fang Qingshan's strength be greatly reduced, he would have to spend even more energy and strength to balance the 5 elements. Fang Qingshan decided not to look for treasures, but to find a place to hide. If he wanted to achieve something in the ancient Haven Palace, then he would have to balance the 5 elements. Although Fang Qingshan had many 5 elemental spiritual items, none of them could compare to the karmic fire and the nirvana sacred flame. Fortunately, he still had the world tree. As the origin of all wood, the nature of the world tree was not any weaker than the 2 flames. Because its level was too high, Fang Qingshan did not dare to refine it completely, apart from using it to influence him. This was because he was afraid that the 5 elements would be out of balance. He originally planned to find an opportunity to ask Fang Han for the Yellow Springs holy water and refine it with water, and would complementing each other. However, he did not expect that his plans could not keep up with the changes. He did not obtain the water attribute treasure, so he refined the fire attribute treasure first. Fortunately, water and wood could complement each other, and so could fire and wood. Compared to refining the karmic fire and nirvana's sacred flame, refining the origin of the world tree was much safer and faster. After all, he had already refined the world tree into his second clone. Metal gave birth to water, water gave birth to wood gave birth to fire, fire gave birth to earth, and earth gave birth to metal. As the origin of the world tree was refined into the 5 elements of essential energy and divine ability, fire and wood were mutually reinforcing. Although there were only 2 elements, they had reached a balance again. Phew! At this moment, Fang Qingshan heaved a long sigh of relief. This time, if it were not for the nirvana elixir, the perfect baptism, and the endless spirit power in the heavenly river, he did not know how many twists and turns he would have to go through to survive the wind and fire tribulation. If it were not for the world tree, he would have suffered the consequences of fusing the karmic fire and nirvana's sacred flame this time. At this moment, the sky was finally clear after the rain, and the bitterness was over. Fang Qingshan carefully looked at the changes in his body and couldn't help but smile slightly. First of all, after going through the perfect baptism, the calcination of the karmic fire, and the repair of the nirvana's sacred flame, Fang Qingshan was now like a tyrannosaurus in human form. Although he did not specialize in body tempering, ordinary golden core experts would not be able to withstand a punch from him. As for the golden core, his golden core was already extremely powerful, and if he used it to hit someone, it would not be much weaker than a Tao artifact. After all, it was something that even the heavens and earth would blow for. At this moment, it was even purer, and all the divine powers were condensed into one, flickering with a faint layer of immortal golden light. It was not as domineering as before, but more carefree and eternal. Especially the core divine powers, the 5 elements extermination needles. Among them, the fire and wood needles were extremely powerful, especially the fire needle. With a single glance, one would feel as though a great disaster was about to befall them. This was the effect of the karmic fire. Once pierced, one would not be able to escape the calamity if the karmic fire was not extinguished. Vaguely, Fang Qingshan felt that his golden core had already gained sentience, like an egg that was about to hatch, giving birth to a second him. He knew that he had once survived the Great Tribulation and was only a step away from the 9th Heaven Earth Dharma characteristic. As long as he could reach the hidden scripture pavilion of the ancient Haven Palace and obtain the cultivation techniques of the various sovereign immortal bodies, it would only be a matter of time before he made his breakthrough. Waving his hand, Fang Qingshan stored the Pentacloud Peach Flower Miasma and was shocked to see that Mu Chen's group of 4 was still waiting outside, which made him feel warmth in his heart. Fang Qingshan, you're finally out. Seeing Fang Qingshan's silhouette, Ling Jing couldn't help letting out a long breath. I'm sorry. After I made my breakthrough, I have cultivated a divine ability, causing everyone to wait. Fang Qingshan apologized. All right. Let's not talk about anything else. Let's leave quickly. If we're late, there won't be any dregs left. Ling Jing waved his hand. They didn't ask Fang Qingshan what kind of mystic art he was cultivating for it to take him so long. After all, this was a matter of privacy. Let's go. After the heavenly lake, we can't miss the hidden scripture pavilion. Muchen smiled. The evolution method of his great solar, undying body was in there. If Fang Qingshan wanted to obtain the cultivation techniques of other sovereign celestial bodies, as well as the divine ability of the Sanqing body, then he had to go to the Hidden Scripture Pavilion as well. The Hidden Scripture Pavilion was the most important place, so no one had any objections. The five of them stood up at the same time and turned into streaks of light as they flew out of the heavenly lake. Chapter 220. In the ancient Haven Palace, there were 5 halls and 9 mansions beneath the Heavenly Emperor. After passing through the 9 mansions and Heavenly Lake, they would be in the territory of the 5 halls. The 5 halls were the cornerstones of the ancient Haven Palace, with every single hall master being a perfected Earth Sovereign. Furthermore, they weren't ordinary perfected Earth Sovereigns, since every single one of them had the potential to reach the Heavenly Sovereign Realm. Aside from the 4th Hall Master, who had fallen in the invasion of the Great Thousand World back then, the other 4 Hall Masters had fallen in the ancient Haven Palace. So if they wanted to plunder the treasures of the 5 halls, the 4th Hall Master would be the easiest. But comparatively speaking, the treasures of the 4th Hall weren't as precious as the other 4 halls. So, where do you guys intend to go next? Fang Qingshan asked. Anywhere. Lin Jing and Xiao Xiao had the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor as their backs. Although the treasures of the ancient Haven Palace were tempting, they only had the attitude of fortune if they could obtain it. Unless it was a peerless divine ability like the Sanqing art, it would be best if they could obtain it. But it didn't matter if they couldn't obtain it, since it was more for training. So it didn't matter where they went. As for Nine Nether, she would go wherever Muchen went. In an instant, the 4 of them couldn't help looking at Muchen. If possible, I intend to head to the 2nd hall first. Muchen smiled. Oh, why? Xiao Xiao curiously asked. Because of this. Muchen took out a token. Back then, before the ancient Haven Palace opened, Muchen had obtained this mysterious token in an auction held in the western city, which he had offended the Grand Xia. Through Mandala, Muchen knew that this was a commander's seal, the spirit-slaughtering army under the 2nd Hall Master. Although it wasn't a saint artifact or a sovereign ability like the Sanqing art, it was still precious to Muchen. That's because he was a battle formation master, and with sufficient troops, it wouldn't be hard for him to challenge those at a higher level. Furthermore, the 2nd Hall Master's spirit-slaughtering army had once killed an Earth Sovereign, so Muchen didn't want to miss it. What? This is the spirit-slaughtering army's command seal? Aside from Fang Qingshan, it was also the first time that Lin Jing and Nine Nether had heard about it, so they couldn't help being startled. After all, this token was something that Lin Jing had bought for Muchen. Oh, that's right. Brother Fang, are you going to follow us or act alone? Muchen asked. If you guys want to go to the 2nd hall, I won't be going. Fang Qingshan shook his head. Oh, could it be that you also have an opportunity like Muchen? Xiao Xiao curiously asked. No. Fang Qingshan decisively shook his head. Before they could ask, he continued, I only have 2 objectives in this trip to the ancient Haven Palace, the Heavenly Lake and the Scripture Depository. Scripture Depository? The Heavenly River was the foundation of the ancient Haven Palace. Then this hidden Scripture Pavilion was the foundation of the ancient Haven Palace. Who wouldn't be willing to enter the ancient Haven Palace? However, the hidden Scripture Pavilion was extremely mysterious, and it wasn't something that anyone could enter just because they wanted to. So when they heard that Fang Qingshan wanted to enter the hidden Scripture Pavilion, everyone was startled before Lin Jing and Xiao Xiao asked at the same time. You know where the hidden Scripture Pavilion is? You can directly enter the hidden Scripture Pavilion. Are there any conditions to enter the hidden Scripture Pavilion? Hearing Xiao Xiao's question, Nine Nether and Muchen couldn't help asking curiously. That's for sure. Xiao Xiao nodded her head. The hidden Scripture Pavilion is the same as the Dragon Ascension Gate, a high-rank saint artifact that floats in the space of the ancient Haven Palace. If you want to enter the hidden scripture pavilion, aside from finding a heavenly sovereign that's proficient in spatial abilities, you can only wait for the hidden scripture pavilion to absorb you. If you want the hidden scripture pavilion to absorb you, you will have to fulfill his conditions and undergo his test. Actually, the test of the hidden scripture pavilion has already started the moment you entered the primordial sky and the dragon ascension gate. The better your performance, the greater your chances of entering. Hearing Xiao Zhao's explanation, Mu Chun and the rest couldn't help feeling a chill in their hearts, and they subconsciously raised their heads to look at the sky, as if there was an eye staring at them. In the end, we still have to wait for the hidden scripture pavilion to absorb us. Nine Nether immediately reacted and continued. So how can young Master Fong enter? As she spoke, Mu Chun, Xiao Xiao, and Lin Jing curiously looked at Fong Qingshan. Although I'm not a heavenly sovereign, I'm proficient in spatial abilities. Fong Qingshan faintly smiled as he continued. Furthermore, we're Golden Dragon disciples, so we're qualified to enter. Using this karma, I can enter the hidden scripture pavilion in advance. Really? When Lin Jing and the rest heard his words, they revealed doubtful expressions. Clearly, they didn't believe Fong Qingshan's words. Of course, Fong Qingshan decisively replied. Just as Fong Qingshan had said, they were Golden Dragon disciples, and their performances were outstanding after entering the ancient Haven Palace. Thus, they naturally possessed the qualifications to enter the hidden scripture pavilion. Furthermore, he was proficient in spatial abilities. Whether it was the void evasion sword art, the great slicer art, or the instant slaughter art of the Ascension Gate, they were all top-tiered spatial abilities. Especially the void evasion sword art, which was proficient in finding flaws and a lesser fate art. It's just that the timing of entry had changed from passive to active. Finishing his words, Fong Qingshan no longer bothered with Mu Chun and the rest. He silently circulated the void evasion sword art and started to search for the hidden scripture pavilion. Just as Xiao Xiao had said, their performances had always been under the surveillance of the hidden scripture pavilion. And Fong Qingshan wanted to use this surveillance to find the hiding place of the scripture depository. His body and mind became ethereal as he circulated his sword. Fong Qingshan spread out his divine sense and observed the slightest changes in the space. As time gradually passed, just when Mu Chun and the rest felt that Fong Qingshan wouldn't succeed, a smile suddenly appeared on Fong Qingshan's face. Found it! Found it! Hearing Fong Qingshan muttering to himself, Mu Chun and the rest were simultaneously startled before expressions of joy surfaced on their faces. They had found it, but they still needed a medium to enter. Fortunately, Fong Qingshan had the lesser fate art. The power of fate is omnipresent, and the wheel of fate is constantly spinning. Using the power of fate to communicate with karma and enter the hidden scripture pavilion. As Fong Qingshan muttered an incantation, a loud and clear voice resounded out. In the next instant, an indescribable and unclear energy started to form around his body, causing Mu Chun and the rest to feel a faded aura surging out from the unseen world. Then, he felt the space above him start to ripple. Chapter 2:21. Buzz. There seemed to be ancient Sanskrit chanting. Following that, the space distorted, and an extremely simple and unadorned navy blue mysterious pavilion slowly materialized, appearing in front of everyone little by little. The hidden scripture pavilion. Ling Jing and the rest exclaimed at this scene before covering their mouths, fearing that they might interrupt Fong Qingshan's actions and cause their efforts to go down the drain. They never expected that Fong Qingshan would really bring the hidden scripture pavilion out from the void, which made them both surprised and delighted, especially those murmurs at the end. They couldn't hear any incantations, but they could sense a supreme power that belonged to fate. Thus, Ling Jing and the rest couldn't help feeling curious about Fong Qingshan's origin. After the sutra depository had fully manifested, A suppressive force belonging to a high-grade holy artifact swept towards everyone. Of course, Fang Qingshan was the target of the suppressive force. Aside from the Heavenly Emperor, it had always been the hidden scripture pavilion that selected people. Since when was it a disciple's turn to bring it out? Thus, the appearance of the hidden scripture pavilion gave Fang Qingshan and the rest a show of strength. That was a high-rank Saint artifact, an existence comparable to a high-rank Dao artifact. Although the hidden scripture pavilion wasn't a combat treasure, it wouldn't be any weaker than an Earth Sovereign. Therefore, when the pressure swept out, everyone felt a pressure as powerful as hell descend from the sky, as if an ancient giant mountain was crashing down on them. But regardless of whether it was Nine Nether, Ling Jing, Xiao Xiao, or even Mu Chun and Fang Qingshan, none of them were pushovers. Facing the pressure of the hidden scripture pavilion, the few of them immediately unleashed their abilities. Phoenix cries resounded, but a soft cry came from Nine Nether's body. A nine-secret underworld bird that was so huge that one couldn't see the end of it flapped its wings. Its entire body was emitting crystal-clear flames that surged and directly isolated the pressure of the scripture depository. Lin Jing and Xiao Xiao brought out a white gourd and an ancient lamp at the same time, unleashing the power of Saint artifacts. Although it wasn't comparable to the scripture depository, it could easily resist his deterrence. On the other hand, a crystalline pagoda hovered above Mu Chen's head, emanating a sacred and mysterious aura with sparkling flames flickering in it. It wasn't any weaker than the undying flames on Nine Nether's body or the seven-colored flames on Xiao Zhao's lamp. This was one of the 36 peerless divine abilities of the Great Thousand World, the 8-divisional pagoda. It was the ultimate divine ability of the Buddha clan, and it wasn't any weaker than the Sanqing divine ability. As for Fang Qingshan, he immediately summoned the pure Yang flying sword. An unparalleled sharpness tore through the world. It was unstoppable, not to mention the aura of the Sutra Depository. Even the Sutra Depository itself was shocked. One must know that the pure Yang flying sword wasn't any weaker than him. Most importantly, the pure Yang flying sword was a killing weapon, which made him feel fearful. He initially wanted to give Fang Qingshan's party a show of strength, but he never expected that they would be so extraordinary. If they weren't Saint Beast bloodlines, then they were Saint artifacts and peerless divine abilities. Furthermore, Fang Qingshan even had a killing weapon like the pure Yang flying sword. The Sutra Depository fell into silence for a brief moment before he slowly said, "I never expected that you would be able to use the power of fate and link karma. But you guys are either the disciples of the Golden Dragon or the Golden Jiao Dragon. In addition to your previous performances, you guys have fulfilled the requirements to enter the Sutra Depository. Come in." As his voice faded, the hidden scripture pavilion faintly rippled as azure light gathered over. In the end, it turned into a stone staircase that extended across the sky towards Fang Qingshan's group of 5. Although the Sutra Depository was easy to talk to, he actually had no other choice. Fang Qingshan's party was a Golden Dragon disciple, so they were qualified to enter the Sutra Depository. Thus, they were bound by karma. Furthermore, he had the Lesser Destiny art, which allowed him to link karma and find his main body. Most importantly, the existence of the pure Yang flying sword could threaten him, so the Sutra Depository had agreed to let them enter. At this moment, Lin Jing, Xiao Xiao, and Nine Nether couldn't help rejoicing. It was especially so for Mu Chun. As long as he entered the hidden scripture pavilion, he would have the opportunity to obtain the evolution method of the great solar undying body. Furthermore, he was a step ahead of the others. With a step ahead, how could he not be excited? "Let's go." Fang Qingshan waved his hand and led the way up the bluestone stairs. With every step the 5 of them took, the stone staircase behind them would vanish into thin air. When they reached the last stone staircase, the space around them suddenly changed. When they reappeared, they were surrounded by clouds and mist, like a celestial realm. In the mist, there was only a Sutra Depository that quietly stood there, as if it hadn't moved since ancient times. Buzz. The scripture depository, which had been tightly shut for God knows how many years, finally opened slowly at this moment. What followed was an extremely rich aroma of books. Come, let's go in. When Fong Qingshan's party of 5 entered, they first saw darkness before their eyes lit up. However, they were baffled if they had come to a fake sutra depository. That's because what appeared before them wasn't the sutra depository. Not to mention the boundless ocean of divine abilities, there wasn't even a single scroll. On the contrary, they had arrived in the starry sky of the universe. Just as the 5 of them frowned in surprise, wondering if they had entered through improper means and thus met with a mishap, the starry sky in front of them suddenly trembled. Buzz! Then, the stars hanging high in the starry sky seemed to be falling stars. There was a loud rumble, and it whistled towards the 5 of them. The commotion was huge, like a meteor shower. When Fong Qingshan's party of 5 saw this, they couldn't help but jump in fright. Could it be that even the sutra depository was not dangerous? Actually, this was just because the sutra depository was unhappy, and Fong Qingshan's party of 5 didn't take the normal path and wanted to scare them. Seeing that the meteors were about to reach them, Fong Qingshan's party was about to take out their magical treasures and divine abilities. The meteors suddenly went silent. Between movement and stillness, even Fong Qingshan's party of 5 couldn't help but fall into a trance for a second. When they came back to their senses, they realized that they were like the center of the universe and the stars were revolving around them. Taking a closer look, he realized that these weren't stars or meteorites at all. They were actually step-by-step divine ability manuals. The scrolls emanated an endless luster with golden radiance and crimson aura. Occasionally, there would be large words leaping out that radiated brilliance. Good fellow, this is truly the Sutra Depository of the Ancient Haven Palace. It's truly extraordinary. Looking at the divine ability scrolls before them, Fong Qingshan's party couldn't help sighing. But aside from sighing, everyone also felt vexed in their hearts, especially Fong Qingshan and Mu Chun. That's because there were so many divine ability scrolls. So how would they know where the immortal golden body, sovereign immortal body, and Sanqing was? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.